Hello, hello. It's time to call aboard here on the Tabletop Express. And where did
Boom!
Ryan go? There he
Sorry,
is.
I couldn't
Oh,
resist.
oh. I was
Sorry.
wondering why you'd like.
I wanted to. It was fun. Hi, welcome
You
to
just
another exciting, thrilling weekly call aboard. Well, every other weekly.
Bi-weekly.
bi-weekly.
I'm Ryan. How are you?
I'm Chris.
I'm Anthony, and we are all home.
Yes, we
Yes.
are.
We're home. We got snow coming here, so
Yes.
that's part of it. And yeah, we're excited though because this episode of Call Aboard. And if you've never joined an episode of Call Aboard and you're finding this video and saying, "What's Call Aboard?" Guys, Call Aboard is our live call-in show where you go to call-aboard.com and you can call in and be part of the show, right?
I like
It's
it.
fun times. And we have a good time here. Always have a good topic. I'm excited about this week's topic.
All
I
right.
just want to say that. Very, very excited.
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah. 2-player only games. So not just 2-player.
Favorite 2-player only games.
Yes, favorite 2-player only game.
Asterisk with Anthony's list.
There's Anthony's list. It's all gone. We got a few people in the house, guys. We got Marcel hanging out.
What up?
We got a Heyo over
What's
there.
up?
We got Rachel here, I see. So it's always great to see Rachel. Always joins us at from her time zone, very different than our own.
96
Yes,
degrees.
just a little bit.
Yeah. I don't think Rachel has snow then, does she?
Probably
I
not.
don't know.
No. But look, guys, let's talk about this topic as we kind of get into it. I think it's fair to say the big board is back.
The
Ryan?
big board's back, and I'm gonna bring it in. Ready? Hang
Dun,
on.
dun, 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 dun,
Bum, bum,
dun,
bum,
dun, dun, dun.
We got 10 each today, fellas. Look at that.
That's a big one.
That's a
Yeah.
big one.
This is gonna be I'm
can
gonna
scroll, but I could scroll.
there's not much scrolling you can do.
Did we have this board last time we did this video or no?
That's a great question. So last year around this time, we did favorite 2-player games, but it wasn't favorite 2-player only games.
Right.
We did have a top 10, and a lot of my top 10 has changed because it's favorite 2-player only.
Yeah.
games.
Well, we will be talking about our favorite 2-player only games. That is a big differentiator. And I do want to point out, I do expect crossover. But with that said, I want to make one note about the way I did my picks. Obviously, pretty straightforward with the rules on 2-player only. But I did avoid, and I just want to put out there just for anyone who wants to play the guessing game with us tonight, that I did avoid anything that had you had to play it multiple times, anything legacy like that. Maybe you would need to repeat it with those same people. I did avoid that with this.
Same person.
What?
Same person, not same
person. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's less likely. There's less of those in this category, but I did avoid those. So I just wanted to point that out. This is very much anything that you're going to be able to pick up and play on the table in one sitting with one person.
I'm ready to call shenanigans when that happens. We'll see.
No,
We'll see.
That's early shenanigans.
That's
Start
very
early.
Oh, thanks, Marcel, catching the crossfire. Yeah.
Crossover.
But with that,
Did anyone ever get crossfire as a kid? Sorry to
No.
interrupt. It was
No, I
very
I did not
disappointing.
own it, but I
It
did
was
play it
disappointing. Oh, you like? Yeah, it was. It's like, okay. The commercial is way cool.
the commercials made it look like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's 80s commercials for you. I
It's
do
like
remember.
Mad Men.
I remember. I think instead of playing like the traditional way, we probably just took turns,
Chucking marbles.
shooting a bunch until the thing went
Yeah.
up there.
To be fair, the commercials made Hungry Hungry Hippos like 10 times as much fun as that actually was after 30 minutes of Hungry Hungry Hippos. So,
Oh, Mr.
All
Al.
right, so
please
Mr.
bet.
Al has a prediction, but he's not gonna give too much information because he does have his own video.
yeah,
Coming later, but he's predicting at least 4 crossovers with you.
That-
Arrows.
that seems like a fair bet. I would take the the bet on that one. If this
All right, so that's the over under is 4. So we'll see how that goes
for
at the end of the
Chris.
week.
Yeah, for me, Mr. Rao is like my Dan Nixon for you, Anthony.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Are you saying I'm missing like a counterpart?
I don't know who your
Yes.
counter. I
Wow.
just, I mean,
Guess I gotta know my audience.
your audience is I don't know, someone.
Well, you know what?
listening.
You know what? Then let's just do it. Let's just do it. I'll just jump into
Yes.
my number 10.
Okay.
You know why? You know why? Because none of you are gonna have this on your list. And I don't know if any of you played it. But at one point, and I feel like, by the way, if this wasn't on anyone's list, this list would be invalid. At one point, this was on Board Game Geek's number 1 board game of all time.
Of all time.
Of all time.
Is it Twilight Struggle?
It sure is Twilight
Yeah.
Struggle. You guys played Twilight Struggle before?
No.
Okay, well, it came out in 2005, designed by Jason Matthews, Ananda Gupta, and in this game, it is a 2-player only, 4-hour epic of Cold War shenanigans. I really like this one because it has the card-driven action system that is crazy. 'Cause every turn you have a hand of cards and you're just playing cards one after one, right? However, all the cards are either for the by the way, it's a Cold War game, so you're either the USSR or the USA. So you're either playing a USA related card or a USSR card, and the deck is mixed up with all these cards, along with like a bunch of neutral cards. And if you ever play a card that belongs to your enemy's faction, that triggers that action for that card, because you could choose to do either the card's action or use its points to do whatever action you want. So if you use an opponent's card, it just triggers that action without any chance for you to do anything. It's great. I love this one because it is very much a 2-player tug of war kind of thing. It's either you play all 8 rounds, or first person to 20 wins, or first person to cause nuclear war loses. So there's like a whole DEFCON tracker and everything. And you're really trying to push your opponent as much as possible. I really, really like this one. It does not look like a game that at the time I would enjoy. Now it looks very much like a game I would enjoy. But
I was going to say, now I look at it and it feels like a game, but it's one I've always wanted to play.
Yeah.
I know it's obviously an investment of time, but this is one that is on that list.
I mean, you could see a lot of its DNA in a lot of other card-driven war games. So you see it in Votes for Women. You see it in Watergate. You see it in 1960, Making of the President. There's so many games that have this DNA in it, and yet Twilight Struggle is something that everyone, I think, should try once for board games.
And so was this one of your first like heavier games in the hobby?
It might be. It really might be. I played it a long time ago. I think actually the last time I played I played it online recently, but I played it a long time ago with some friends. I played it with my brother once, which was wild. So it was a good time.
Have you played as both sides?
I have. And USSR definitely is stronger in the beginning, and the US is stronger towards the end.
Okay.
So there's some asymmetric stuff going on there. And also, it helps if you know your history. Like if you're the US player, you probably shouldn't put a lot of influence in Cuba, because it's probably all going to go away, So there's those things to consider.
Oh no, this one's, like I said, this one's on the list because I've heard so many good things about it. I know how highly ranked it's been, and it gets a lot of praise, and it seems rightfully so. Plus, when it comes down to it, I trust a lot of the opinions of people who've told me they liked it. So yeah, this is one that we'll definitely have to play. Do you own this one?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's easy. Make it a 2024 goal. Then I will put it on the list.
Go on, put it on your list.
It's on my list.
Oh wait, I don't believe you.
Waiting.
You say this, and like I'll put it on the list.
I will. You said it's 3 to 4 hours. I got that. I heard you. I heard you loud and clear. It is not a short game. I get that.
We'll play it. We'll play it. I'm sure. I actually think you would thoroughly enjoy it. It definitely has a lot of the hallmarks of a Chris Barrow's 2-player kind of shenanigans game.
Shenanigans. Oh man.
So I think you would like it.
I got Danielle in the chat.
Hey, Danielle. Always on the lookout for 2-player games to play with my husband. He's picky though. Well, might I recommend Twilight Struggle if you got 4 hours.
Well, it depends on what kind of picky is he, right? What is he picky about? Give a little more information.
I'll be intrigued. Yeah, and Danielle, if any of these stand out, obviously I know Danielle, who's obviously given me such good ideas of solo games in the past, but I'd love to hear what kind of games Danielle might think her husband would like, because I'm sure we can come up with a few tonight for Danielle. But I'm happy to mention one of my number 10 if you guys want, and
bring the board back up.
But before I do that, can I just say call-aboard.com if you want to call in, talk about a favorite 2-player game of yours, or even take a shot at what you think is on our list. Happy to have you call in. That's call-aboard.com. Make sure you include that hyphen. So my number 10 this year is one that I don't play nearly enough, which is probably why it's down at 10. And it's from a world that most people in this chat and watching this video have probably heard about, and that is a world called Carcassonne. But this is a game from 2003, Carcassonne, the Castle.
The Castle.
Yeah, this one is, and let me just say, this is my favorite Carcassonne out of anything Carcassonne that's out there. Essentially, you're developing the city within city walls, but it's a standalone game. This is not an expansion. You're not taking the other pieces. You've got starting spaces that you have to come from, which is where you see kind of that I believe that red spot on the wall, like which tile scoring track, that red tile. Mm-hmm. It's really similar, but tiles have to be played within those walls. Scoring is fairly similar. You're going to score for largest keep, or which is the largest house collected during the game. You're still going to collect for those kind of little roadways that are happening, but there's something about this game, because it's confined and it can't escape the walls, that really makes this stand out to me. And my wife, who likes Carcassonne, I've never actually played this one with her, which baffles me, but I've played this with many other people. And this is one that whenever my wife talks about Carcassonne, I always think to myself, because we're usually playing with other people at the time, like, man, if I ever just have a chance just to play with her, this is the one I have to bring to the table again. And this time with her, because this is, I think, a delightful little game. And this, again, like I said, 2003 is when this one came out. And if I've got my notes correct, there's in this game, you've got a few things that constrain your choices. Followers are used for the followers used for scoring are heralds, which are on the paths, knights on towers, squires on houses, and then the merchants on these courtyards, which are more valuable if there's like a market along them. So similar to any other expansion of Carcassonne, where there's just a few different ways to score, same thing's happening. But if you don't like Carcassonne, this ain't going to blow your mind. But at the same time, if you enjoy Carcassonne and want to try something a little different, I highly recommend you try this one out if you can get a hold of a copy. I know it's out of print, but it's one that's worth trying. And I try not to do out of print ones, but this one is in my top 10, so had to mention it.
And I still want to try it too, because it was co-designed by Reiner Knizia.
Yes, it was.
It's a big name.
Yeah, so definitely highly recommend checking this one out. That is Carcassonne, the Castle. Like I said, a game from 2003. Reiner Knizia is one of those. Klaus is the other one. Artist is Roman Kurcharski and Christoph Tisch. And yeah, that's Carcassonne, the Castle.
Have you done this one, Anthony?
I was just about to say, I shockingly have not played this game because Carcassonne is one of my wife's favorite games as well. We've played a lot of it over the years, and I've never actually even like seen this one in person. So I'd love to borrow it at some point.
Oh yeah, totally.
I'll put it on the list.
Oh no, the fake imaginary list.
The fake list. The list that never was.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'll jump right into my number 10, if that's all right with y'all.
Yeah.
This is it's definitely one of the oldest, if not the oldest game on this list for me. Even though it does have a newer edition, which I do not own. I own the first edition, which is Summoner Wars, the master set, and a bunch of other, factions that came afterwards. But this first master set came out in 2011, just about the year, maybe the year before that I started getting into the hobby. So this is one of the oldest games in my collection. And I am pretty sure it was on my list last year. I don't know what position it was, but if it did fall, if it was higher than 10, the reason for that is I haven't played it in a long time, and I certainly haven't played it since I made the list last year. Ironically, I've actually only played this with one person ever, and that's not my wife. So this is a tactical game of just playing cards on a battlefield, as you can see there. So kind of like a miniatures game, but it has cards instead of minis. And you're in charge of one faction that has a leader, which is your summoner. And every faction has a starting setup that's a little bit different. And in your deck, besides your summoner, you have a bunch of walls, which is how you bring out new members of your faction. You summon them adjacent to the walls. And there's all kinds of other characters in your faction. There's some lower level kind of foot soldier type of characters, and then there's some mid level, and there's some like champion, really heavy hitter kind of characters. What's pretty unique about this game is you can make your own decks. Like you can deck build kind of like you do with like Magic, but you just play the factions right out is fine as well. But essentially, you're getting a hand of cards, and the cards have a cost in Magic points to summon them onto your board. But you have to use your cards to get those Magic points, or destroy some of your opponent's units, and they now go in your Magic pile as well. So there's a lot of strategy, not only in how you're moving your cards and your units around, because some of them have range attack, some of them are melee, they all have some kind of a special ability that's all unique. But the strategy also comes in a bit of hand management, right? Because you can get, this heavy hitter early on in your hand, but it might cost a whole bunch of Magic to get out. And you may have to, give up a lot of other cards to try to get that thing out, and hoping that you get it out in time. And then once you do, man, you can kind of rampage and start to do some major damage. But a really, really unique aspect to the factions that you choose. It is asymmetrically balanced, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
They're very different. They play very different, and it's a ton of fun. Very strategic, very tactical, cool artwork. And the second edition has really good artwork as well. And like I said, tons of other factions you can expand on with the game. You can even combine. They came out with a bunch of like second decks of factions. So, there's the Jungle Elves, and there's a Jungle Elves next set, and you can combine those two and make one Jungle Elf set and see how they kind of play off each other. Really, really enjoyed this game. I highly recommend it, and I wish I played it more. Maybe I'll get my wife to play it someday. We'll see.
This one, I feel like I've heard the name of it, but I don't think anyone ever actually described the rules and it sounds interesting. I love that what you described in is this worth the cost to get this card out? Anytime that's happening in a game, I enjoy that. And especially in a 2-player game where it can feel really tight at times, which it sounds like you can have that experience with those asymmetric powers in this one.
It's almost like taking chess to like a crazy level, because there's, it's a very similar board. It's a grid layout. And you win by killing the opponent's summoner. So that, the main person in charge of the other faction, you're just trying to get them down to 0 hit points. Combat, by the way, is just dice. It's just D6s. I think it might be 1s and 2s or misses, or maybe up to 3s. I forget what the split is, but it's very simple. There's not a lot of like, oh, what does this do? Does this come into play here? Everything you need is on the cards, and it's a lot of fun. A lot of replayability for Summoner Wars for sure.
I wonder if this would scratch the itch for getting Danielle's husband to play, because it sounds like this could be similar. There's a lot of like
we got some
card manipulation.
Let's see here. So Rachel asked what kind of games that he likes. Danielle said not a specific pattern of what he enjoys, so he's all over the map. Sounds like most of us. Mechs vs. Minions, Astronauts, Rolling Realms, of course, Cubitos, which I have not played. Imperium Legends, I know.
Deckbuilding, love that one.
Yeah.
And Mr. Rouse suggested 5 Tribes, perhaps.
Yeah.
5 Tribes is like that whole that's like Mancala, where you like
that's a Mancala
stuff and
game.
take it out.
A lot of analysis paralysis for me anyway in that game. But
I enjoy 5 Tribes. 5 Tribes is currently at my local library in my adjacent collection.
It's not my copy, is it?
No, I don't. I never had a copy of 5 Tribes from you.
I think you sold mine then. Okay.
Yeah, I had my own copy of 5 Tribes. Don't be putting that on.
And Pablo here bringing up the Wood game series, abstract, stacky, chess games.
Yeah, Corridor is one where you put on the walls. Yeah.
Yep. And the gift series, Yinch is on my short list. It is not on the top 10, but it is definitely on there. Maybe at number 12 or 13 or so.
I still got to play those.
I think you like it.
Yeah. Now, is it pronounced GIF or GIF? Sorry. Kidding. We'll stop there.
I'm not going there.
All those games in that series do have a very questionable pronunciation. It's not very clear how to say any of them.
Okay.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, and I have been playing. That's right. Marcel's mentioning we've been playing a few of those lately on Board Game Arena because I had not played all of them. So we've been trying some out. So,
all right, cool. Well, I'll jump to my number 9. And imagine a world where the land was rad. Yes, it's Radlands.
The raddest of the lands.
Radlands, designed by Daniel Pitchnick, and published by Roxley Games in 2021, is a 2-player try to beat your opponent sort of game where each player is controlling a different base. So you're trying to make your bases survive, and you're putting out different I don't know what they're called. Let's call them rad people. You put your rad people in front of the rad bases, and you are trying to prevent your opponent from taking out your bases while taking out your opponent's bases. Also, there's water, because it's very like Mad Max-y kind of thing. So water is a resource. So you could try to gather up water and to do some bigger combo-y kind of things. What I really like about this game, though, is that it's a game where there's a shared deck amongst the players. So it feels very much like a CCG kind of thing, like you're going up against your opponent, but there's a shared deck across for both opponents, and it still gives that same feel without the whole deck construction sort of thing. So I really do enjoy this one a lot. I've played it with Barros a couple of times. I even bought Barros's copy because he sold his copy to buy the deluxe-ier version of Radlands. And that character does look like a dark beaker from the Muppet.
Yeah. And they're actually called persons by the person cards and the event cards in this game in the rules book.
Man, they should have consulted me.
I mean,
where are they?
it is one that I did sell to you.
Because
I do really like it. I did deluxify my copy, and it's also on my list.
What number is yours?
I think it's number 5, if I have my list correct.
It is number 5.
Ooh,
yeah.
Boy.
Yeah.
That doesn't look any different.
No, it doesn't. No, I don't
know the subtleties of rad. That's why.
Yes. No. I will note for people, the deluxe edition, as it's one of the few games where I really will go as far as saying the mats made a difference for me, and the hazmats or the player mats for me was just something that I really liked having. So for me, that was a big reason I made that update. But yeah, this game is one that I just really enjoyed. The camps, after you play a base game where they give you like the recommended camps that you're going to start with have the abilities. I love the drafting mechanic of it, where you're going to draft out. You're going to kind of get these random camps, and all right, fine, these are my camps. And it's really fun because there's so much variety in the different camps in the game and the way that you might want to play based on them. And I don't know, I very much like this. It's just fun playing this head to head with someone, and it is true. The Mad Max piece to this that is the theme that I'm feeling. It's an apocalyptic theme, and it's great, and it works really well. And you can even look at, you will actually play cards sometimes, just like they are right there, where it's not with the ability; they're just representative of. All right, knock this person out, and they don't necessarily have an ability or anything. So they actually are going to get played that way down on the table, and you're facing each other, and you're just trying to get to and destroy the other people's camps. And water is such an important resource in this one. As Ryan mentioned, I mean, you lack water, so you're fighting over the water, which is why water is your main resource that you're using.
In particular, too, it's very similar, at least to me. I feel a lot of similarities to a game that was on my shortlist, which was Android Netrunner. And in Android Netrunner, it's a 2-player asymmetric game where one player is working as a corporation while the other ones are the runners trying to hack into the corporations. Very cyberpunky kind of thing. And the corporation is putting these ice in front of their servers that the hacker needs to hack into. And this has that vibe as if both players were the corporation. So I like that aspect a lot too. But yeah, that for sure is Radlands. And I see some comments about it too. I do agree, by the way, Mr. Rao, that it should be up for a digital implementation.
Yeah.
And yeah, they did smell good.
any card game is going to be great in digital format.
Yeah.
Because have you guys seen the Dominion app? I've been playing this.
Oh yeah.
App, and my God, it is amazing how fast some of those games can go.
5 minutes.
5 minutes or less. 3 minutes sometimes. I don't always win, but it's just incredible because it just takes all the shuffling out of it, and it's just.
This one would play so quick in a well-designed BGA implementation or something, or just as an app.
I think a dedicated app for this one. Honestly,
I would buy that
for it. Like, look at the art for it; it's ready for that.
Any comment on this question, Barrows? Any potential mild, if any, first player advantage? In this game?
Can't claim, as much as I like this game, I can't claim I offer any particular advantage when I play it. So I don't know that I've experienced that. Like, I just think that to this point, no, I don't want to completely say that isn't the case. But I think because that there is enough variety in the cards, in particular bases, that it's more likely to be just getting a few of these really good bases, maybe. But I haven't ever dealt with any major issues in this one. So I'm going to say for now, I haven't experienced it. But, I've got enough games under my belt that I'm also not considering myself great at the game as much as I like it. So with more experienced players who maybe dedicate themselves to it, they might have found that. I have not. I'd have to look through the forums to really confirm it. I would feel bad to say yes or no, specifically, and make it like, yeah, this is definitely the case, because I don't think I have enough plays of it to put it there. That's least skilled.
I'm about in the same camp too.
Okay.
Yeah.
More hellos. We got Dr. J Game Fan.
Hey, Dr. J.
Dr. J.
Sarah's here.
Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Sarah.
Excited to learn about 2-player games. Yep, there's a whole bunch of them.
And you could also call in with some. You could shout them out in the chat. Yep.
Shout them out.
If any come up in the chat that are on our list, we'll jump to it.
I will note, TAC is a great game. I have only played it once. I played it in person, and I really enjoyed it. I would need more plays to put it on my list, but it has that potential. It's a very well-designed game, and there's a bunch of versions of it. So
it's this one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's like a master version. Like it's a beautiful looking game. It's this beautiful abstract board game. So it falls right into my camp of games that you would expect me to like. But I would need to play it more than one time to sit here and put it on my top list.
Nice.
That's fair.
It plays as well, in my opinion, though, as it looks, and it looks beautiful. So,
all right. Well, we got 2 picks from both of you revealed, so I'm going to go ahead into my number 9. I highly suspect this is on Chris's list as well. This is very, very often the game I use for the next step up after chess for teaching folks that enjoy that type of game, and that is Onitama. Onitama, the base game, came out in, I believe, 2014. There's been a few expansions since then. I know, Chris, you have 1 or 2 of them. I've only actually played the base game, and there is a lot of replayability in just the base game, because the way you set this game up is you're only going to be using 5 cards for the whole game. And the base game comes with, I don't know, maybe 18, 20, something like that. Essentially, each player gets 2, and then there's 1 off to the side that's going to be sort of swapped and shared. Because on your turn, you're going to choose one of those 2 cards to use and move your pieces the way that the pattern is depicted on that card. This is an abstract strategy game. You only have 5 pieces, 1 teacher or master piece, and then 4 students. What's cool about this is, unlike chess, the pieces themselves do not have a unique way that they move. It's all about those cards. So any one of your pieces can be moved according to those cards. The cards are based on, I believe, Japanese like fighting styles, perhaps. So there's like the dragon and the lotus,
see the
frog,
eel,
all the different animals, and they all have a grid on them that represents the board and how the possible ways that you can move. You capture pieces just like you do in chess, just by landing on them. The other thing that's pretty different about this that, again, people tend to enjoy is because you're using the same cards, it's really kind of evens the playing field for the most part. Meaning, you're always going to know the 2 possible things that your opponent can do. Because these cards are up, they're face up, right? And you choose one of them, you make your move, and then you put that card to the side and swap it with the one that was off to the side. So now you have that one. And then next turn, someone else, your opponent's going to have that one too. So that information is all up. And if you make a mistake or something, it's kind of your fault, because it's right there in front of you. But that doesn't mean it's an easy game to win either. It is still very strategic and very thinky. I've had a lot of success teaching this to non-gamers, to kids who enjoy chess. I often bring this to chess classes a few weeks in, especially with the kind of older kids, and they pick it up pretty easily. Again, because everything is right there in front of you. There are, like I said, many expansions. I don't have any of them, Chris. I'm going to stop because I'm pretty sure this is on your list. I know you want to talk about it too. So
this is on my list in the number 9 spot.
Oh, awesome. All right.
Same spot. Yeah, I've got some of the expansions. There's even one where you have like
like a ninja, right?
A ninja, and you don't know where it is, and you've got like this other little board where you're moving it around. There's also one of the expansions just basically adds more cards, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So suddenly you've got like 32 or 30 of these cards, and because only 5 are in each game, the way it mixes up is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the thing that I love about this game, there used to be a really good app for it that got taken off the all the Play stores, and it was a heartbreaker. I actually have to tell you, because my son and I used to play it, and the way it was designed, you actually put the phone down, and one person was seeing the run side their way, and the other was seeing it their way, and it was just really well done. And the only version out there that's now is like a mobile interface with very bland looking squares, and my son's just not he's annoyed by it because he knew how good the old app was. But we played this in person, we play this on the phone. This is arguably one of the games I have played I think I've played this game the most with my son out of any game.
Hmm.
And that's where my love for it came from initially. But it's the simplicity of it that you mentioned, Anthony, and the fact that everyone is playing with that. That you might be trying to hold on to one card as long as humanly possible.
That's my favorite
because it's
part.
the only one that allows you to go up one and over two.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
And I want that. But then there's what's that moment to use that card? Because it's going to limit you if you're never getting rid of it, and you're then stuck waiting for whatever your opponent's sending you. So I think you're right. I think it kind of evens that playing field in a way that you cannot with a programmatic chess player who's going to destroy you every
And I
time.
should add, sorry, an integral piece of information I forgot to mention. There are 2 ways to win this game.
Yeah.
You can either capture your opponent's masterpiece, much like in chess, the king, or you can get your master across the board to the opposite temple side, that middle space on the opposite side.
Right.
So that again throws in a little bit of a different, strategy now and then. Yes, Rachel caught me naming things that were not animals. There is no lotus. I don't know why I said lotus. There is no lotus card in that game. Not that I know of, anyway. So thank you, Rachel.
I was going with
we
you.
also have Dan chiming in saying hello, and our friend the camel. Hello.
Hey, welcome on a Monday.
And to this, I will say, if you look to anyone with a game like this one that they get rid of something like that, it could, and usually there's good reasons, just like this. Maybe you can't get it to the table. If you do have a local library, something like that, these are the perfect games for schools or libraries. When you talk about Onitama, in my opinion, I mean, it's got a home in one of those places. If you can't find a game, or check them out and check out the library, check out the schools, and say it's something that maybe a teacher would like, because it really is a great teaching mechanic, and it really does help with that strategic development, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So I love this game. I'm glad you mentioned, like I said, it's also my number 9. So there we go.
I love and hate the box for it too.
Yeah.
I love how compact it is and how it's like a neoprene mat, but it's also like it kind of looks like an alcohol bottle box, and with like the magnetic flap on it. So I love and hate it because it looks so nice, but then I got to fit it in my shelf.
Oh man.
And Pablo's bringing up a game called Ket 2.0 as an honorable mention here.
Always wanted to play that. Yeah, I've always wanted to play that. Have you seen that one?
I have not.
So it's each player has a laser pointer on the other end, and the pieces you're moving have like magnets that are, not magnets, they're mirrors that are facing different angles, and you're trying to point it to your opponents by like moving your pieces and rotating them and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
I've never played it. I want to play it, and I'm almost certain that's how you play it, but but
well, you fooled us, so congrats.
Yeah.
And we are making note. I know there's a few comments with some games. We'll go for a little bit, and then for anything that we can go back and
we could do it.
What people have said here, because I definitely see a few comments with some mentions of games.
All right, let's bring them up.
Let's highlight them.
Let's go back to Danielle, who was talking about some of her favorite stuff. These are not necessarily 2-player only games, but these are games that she enjoys playing 2 players.
Yeah, Dice Throne I know can do 4 players. Catharsis,
I really wanted to put it on my list, but I know it was called out, so I didn't.
Yeah, it was on your list last year though. Wizards of Grimoire I haven't played.
That one's fun. I played that.
Oh yeah, I played Castles of Burgundy. I completely lied. Played it a lot.
That Wizards of Grimoire I have played on Board Game Arena, I believe. It was very interesting. I enjoyed it.
Arwen's here as well. Hello.
Onitama is an outstanding pick.
Yes, yeah, it is.
All right, Sarah's got some picks here. 7 Wonders Duels. Here's some hitters here. 7 Wonders Duel, Santorini, Targi, and Pokemon.
All right, so you want to go into each one of those?
Yeah, why not?
Let's go in order then. Let's
start with 7 Wonders Duel, which...
Well, 7 Wonders Duel happens to be my number 8.
Whoa.
Not 7, but 8.
So disappointing.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
I probably did the same thing last year. Maybe it was 7. I don't know. 7 Wonders Duel. I love 7 Wonders. It is another game that was in my collection at an early stage in the hobby. And the fact that they came out with this 2-player version of a drafting game, was pretty amazing. It's got this cool, as you can see, kind of pyramid setup where the cards on the bottom are available for you to draft, but the ones in the next rows are not available until they're uncovered. If you've never played Seven Wonders or Seven Wonders Duel, it is largely a set collection and resource using game to build cards, and some of them will help you build ones in the future for a cheaper cost and things like that. This has a pretty cool tug of war because there's a couple ways to win the game. You can win it on the military track by having the most military points by literally it's a tug of war, that part of the board you can see on top there. And then there's also the science as a route to victory, which I did win by one time. That was pretty cool. And remind me, I'm forgetting that there's a third path to victory.
There's science, there's military, and then there's
points.
It's just points,
most
right?
And then in one of the expansions, I think there's like diplomacy or some sort of like.
Yeah, I have Pantheon.
It's not in that one.
No, it's not.
It's in the one after that. Yeah.
It's Agora. But yeah, I mean, as a fan of Seven Wonders, and there might just be another game on here that kind of does the same thing where I like the first game and then a 2-player version came out and it's really, really good. But it is good.
The Senate. Control the Senate. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is a great one for drafting. I love the 2-player aspect. I love that there's multiple paths to victory, and I like the setup. And by the way, the current setup you see here is only for the first age of the game. It plays over 3 rounds, so the setup of those cards is not identical every single time. It works the same way where you go from the bottom up, but the pattern is a little bit different. Some of them are face up and some of them are face down. So not only do you have to wait for them to be uncovered, you also don't know what some of them are until they get uncovered. Yeah. And again, because it's only 2 players, if you're not going to take that card, odds are your opponent's going to take it, especially if you pay attention to what they're doing.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I will note, because I've played this online and I've played this in person. I do love this game. It is not on my list. This particular list, it's definitely in my top 20, no question.
Yeah, Pantheon I think is pretty cool. It adds a lot of variety. There's a bunch of gods and goddesses, and they each do different things. It's been a while since I've played it, but there's a favor to getting the favor of this god does this, and it's all different mythologies involved too. So if you're a mythology fan, it's kind of a cool addition to this game as well.
You're perfect as that's a strong statement too. So I definitely got to try. I've heard one is better than the other, and I'm guessing that's the one I heard.
It's Pantheon's better than Agora for sure. And I could also tell you that it's on my list as well.
Crossover
at my number 5.
All right.
And here's the thing. I first of all, I really did like Seven Wonders at one point, and I got completely out of Seven Wonders. Partially when this game came out, I was like, whoa. This system is a lot more interesting and a lot more cutthroat with your opponent. Oh, yeah. I love that, obviously, because it's like my kind of bag. I also love how tight and gritty feeling Seven Wonders Duel feels, just in base game alone. There's enough in there that makes me want to just keep going, and a lot of time. Well, it doesn't take a lot of time, but a lot of the time I'm focusing on my board and also what my opponent is doing as much as possible. If you're going for that science victory, I need to make sure you don't get that science card, because Barros, you don't do that, and I always get you with the science.
I know. No, I was trying. This is what one of my points was, though. Online versus in person. I really love this in person because you really got to be mindful in this different way where online can't replicate, because a lot of times it's giving you the information but you got to kind of be watching what people are doing. And that's true. I did get Marcel with science the other day.
You know what? You probably fell for my traps. And you know what? I'll be honest. I'm getting you with science because people have gotten me with science, and I'm learning from those whoopings I've gotten. You know, you don't say no to science, and also focus on those wonders. That's huge. Like So in the beginning of the game, there's 8 wonder cards that are dealt to the players, and it's in a
Yeah.
draft style, right? So it's first player selects 1, next player selects 2, next player takes 1, and then vice versa with the others. But it's called 7 wonders, right? So once the 7th wonder in total has been completed, that last wonder, regardless of who player has it, cannot use it. And I love that push and pull mechanic. I love the fact that I don't want to flip that card over, because if that's a science card, I don't want to give it to you. Or if that's a military card, you better not, because I have so much money and I don't want to lose it. I love those feelings in board games where there's tight decisions and constant agony into what is going to be happening, and it packages all in a 30-minute time frame. I love that. Now, with Pantheon, I did like Pantheon, and I'll tell you this. I feel like Pantheon loses a little bit of the grit, because there's some more things you can do with the card and less tension. And Agora, there's just too much going on. Like, it just kind of loses it. I'll do Pantheon a couple times, but honestly, I prefer just plain old base 7 Wonders Duel. Just get right in there with the knives and just shiv away. That's me popping balloons with the knife. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. This one is great. Like I said, not on my list, but it's definitely amongst my top 20. And I really appreciate this one. And it is so easy. I feel like it's a game that's, with the base game at least, very easy to kind of teach someone and get right into a game. It doesn't take too long once you can teach them some of the core basics. And by the second round, they got it. And that's what I found. The first round might be a learning round, but by the second round, they got it. And they know that the symbols that match, they now get that card for free. So the system is just really tight.
Yeah. Plus the box is so small.
Yep.
So nice and compact.
Yeah, I do love that size box. There are so many good 2-player games that are in that size box.
Yeah, for sure. Like this, like
that perfect square. We do have a guest. Really quickly before we bring in the guest, I wanted to point out, Ryan, that you correctly derived how that game
good
works. So good job on that.
Good.
And then just a little bit of advice if you are looking for it, because I guess it's out of print. Most of them are going to be used, which means that the laser part may be a little weak in the knees, I guess.
Yeah,
it happens.
It does.
And before we bring our guests, just so everyone knows, we'll certainly make sure we do go through all the things you've mentioned, as well as our own list, especially if any of those are on our list. But
yeah,
I think it is time to bring in our first guest for the evening here on Cola Board, because it is a live call-in show. And here with us is returning caller Arwen. Welcome, Arwen. Oh, we gotta click the button.
There she is.
There's
you have to click the button to get me into the thing. The Hollywood Squares that we got going on here. We just need like, what is it, 5 other people, and then we can go circle gets a square and all that good stuff.
This goes up to 10. So let's push StreamYard to its limits tonight.
Sweet. I love it. Let's break some rules here.
How are you?
I am tired. We've got a lot going on. We just got back from Vegas, and then doing an event in Cincinnati that I spoke at with the Tabletop Collective down there, and just got everything uploaded for tomorrow's episode. So, I figured I might as well decompress with you guys and just have some fun.
Awesome. We're glad to have you. 2-player games.
2-player only games.
Topic though. What?
2-player only. So no solo mode.
Player only.
No 3-player.
No, it's covered.
It's
Arwen can read what it says.
Just say the rules. Say the rules. We're gonna break them, but
yes,
we gotta make them first.
So the one that I really wanted to mention, because there's a couple of them that are like, well, you could do this solo. Well, yeah. But the one that I really do want to mention is Gosu X or Gosu 10, depending on how you pronounce it, or whether you think it's a 10 or an X or whatever.
How do you spell that?
GOSU.
Okay, Gosu X, Gosu 10. Let me share screen.
So Gosu X is a re-implementation of Gosu, which is an older game. and this was re-implemented by Hachette. They just released it, I think it was last year. I'm not one for just straight heads-up combat, back and forth card play. And this game, Radlands is another very good pick. I will say that also got my attention, but this really, really got my attention. Basically, you have these 8 factions. You're going to draft them back and forth with another player, and then you're going to basically take 3 each. The other 2 that you don't take wind up going and flipping over. They have these little player tiles that flip over, and they permanently add rules to your game. Which is kind of wild.
Is this a good one for it? This picture?
Which one is that? Yeah, that's great.
Cool.
So that shows off all the clans, and then their accompanying tiles. So on the front of them, you see the stats, but on the back side of them are those rules that do get implemented. Great components, wonderful back and forth play. And the way that you're going to play your cards is you're going to take your 3 factions, you're going to shuffle them up, and then you're going to play them in kind of a ladder. So you build a base. Where you're playing all your level 1 cards, and then you can play your level 2s on top of that as long as you've played the corresponding level 1 card, and then your level 3s on top of that. It is really hit every single time that we've gotten this one to the table, and like I said, I'm not usually a heads-up card battler, but I really, really like this game. It was very high on my list last year. I think it was like number 3 or number 4.
Where could we get this game?
Most FLGSs are still going to have it, I think.
Okay.
Hachette is the publisher on it, so you can go through their website, and I do think that they still have some copies left. You could also go online, go to Game Nerds or whatever, and grab it there probably as well.
It sounds very. The concept of this sounds really interesting. I like that the fact that depending who you don't pick ends up impacting the game in such an important way is really different. I don't feel like I've seen that.
Yeah, and major rules implementations too, like really, really big rules changes.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I definitely need to look up this one because that gets my attention.
X for extreme, probably, right? Probably.
Exactly.
Right.
The 90s version of Gosu, apparently they went back in time and redid it or something.
Imagine that. They come with there's wallets on chains to play it.
Oh, that'd be great. Like the big baggy pants.
Yeah.
Everything.
Or the Jinko? Yeah.
Jinko, yeah.
It's a good place.
I had one of those wallets on a chain. You're taking me back.
This is one that you'd find in the back of the Spencers, back with the blacklight section.
Oh yeah,
where they had the Bob Marley posters and everything. That was adjacent to that other section that you didn't go to that we're not going to talk about. Yeah,
Spencer's had a weird smell too. But anyways, I do want to try this Gosu X. Nice.
Yeah, it's a great game. It's always, like I said, it's always hit for me, and really, if I want to play something that's just solely 2-player and I don't have the 4 hours for Twilight Struggle, this is definitely one that hits for me.
But you have played Twilight Struggle.
Oh, absolutely. I love it. It's a great game.
See?
Great game.
I don't think Anthony and I debated you on Twilight Struggle.
I know. I just
we paid our
best
respect.
way is I teach you both and I just watch for 4 hours.
That is a great idea.
Right?
Because I think one of the biggest barriers for me to play a game like that would be that reason, right? Because if you, for example, taught me, you are going to be teaching me how to beat you, right? Like if you really want to teach me the game, and especially if it's 2 different factions, you're going to be teaching me if I was you, I would do this. And that kind of takes away from your enjoyment, I think, a little bit.
I guess.
As a teacher.
That actually would make sense to, as a 2-player teach. If you know how to play the game too, you'd have some good idea on those strategies. And whereas 2 other people playing, so I like that.
All right, it's a date. I'm ready.
We'll let it be known.
It is done. Any other games that jump to mind, Arwen, or predictions on, or if it's not one of your own, predictions on what you think might be on our list? I mean, whatever way you want to go.
Let's see. So the problem is I know that Votes for Women can be played solo.
Mhm.
And that
And 4
is
player.
Yeah, that's true. It
Yeah.
is a fantastic game as far as that kind of heads up, play, which I think is what the normal intent of it is.
And it
Boy.
keeps climbing my list too. We've been playing it a lot online on that Rally the Troops site, and man,
Mhm.
it just keeps climbing my list.
Yeah,
It's also arriving to me soon because I ordered on the latest one.
Oh, good.
So I don't have to borrow yours anymore.
It's true. And you'll have Facebook blocking you for playing it, you know? I'm gonna be started on that though.
And my we won't get into that because that's a sore subject for me.
I get it.
No, and the other games again, like I think of games like Stonewall Uprising, and that's got a solo mode.
I have to play that for the record, Arwen. I still have yet to play it. And I think we have Ian who has a copy, but like I'm done.
Yeah, Ian's got a copy.
I gotta play that one. I'm still bummed to have not played it yet.
Rumor has it that those who didn't get a copy might be able to get a copy soon, but you didn't hear that from me.
Didn't hear it.
Okay. We didn't.
This isn't being recorded, right? Or
Stricken from the record.
Don't worry, we'll fix it in post.
Okay, perfect. And then a game, that just came out, Doubt Is Our Product, is fantastic, but it's so depressing to play that
we played it. We played it. We did play it the other night, Arwen, and I some people have seen a description on the Discord about this.
Mm-hmm.
My description in winning was that I mechanically was so thrilled with what I was able to pull off, yet at the same time I felt so dirty.
Yeah, because you're big tobacco.
Because I was big tobacco, and I was like, man, I love the mechanics that Big Tobacco had with this deck building. But when I had all the doubt on my side, like I had every doubt token, and the amount of I
had no chance.
It was so bad. I was like, oh God, this feels so wrong. It's
I'm looking forward to game 2 of this though. I feel like I have a better understanding of how the movement plays and just focus on those goals.
He's making me play Big Tobacco again because he wants to try out.
No, you don't have to. We could switch.
No, you practice all those new things you want to do.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, Doubt Is Our Product was released last year by Hollandspiel Games, published by Amabel Holland, and it's a game where it's a 2-player asymmetric game where one player is playing as the tobacco industry, the other player is playing as the movement against the tobacco industry. And the thing is, Big Tobacco knows smoking causes cancer, the movement knows smoking causes cancer, but you're just trying to either expose that if you're the movement or prevent it being exposed if you're the corporation. And it's a very uphill battle for the movement, and it's a very lucrative deck building kind of construction for the corporation. So just if that alone, if it sounds like something like really fascinating for you, definitely give it a shot. If you have no interest, I don't think it's gonna pull you over. But I'm looking forward to playing again for sure.
Yeah, I will note, just so people in the chat know, we have some favorites of the chat being mentioned. I just saw Boop and Donuts mentioned. The ever discounted,
never-ending discounted donuts.
It went back up. No, it went back up to $14 from $11.99. I seem to always know what the price of donuts is, because it was 52% off at one point.
Yeah, you're not.
Oh, you're there.
You're there now.
Back.
You're welcome back.
Was that on me? Was that? I don't know. I don't know.
Oh man.
I will say with Doubt Is Our Product, you're not gonna go and get that for its fancy art and everything, but it is, you can tell that it's a labor of love. You can tell that it's a game that Amabel put a lot of time and effort and thought and care and, the literal blood, sweat, and tears into that game. Reading through just this, like the extras and, all of this stuff that the tobacco industry knew at the time and kind of drawing some of those parallels to things that are going on today. It's really, it's almost an art piece. And I know there's been that debate about it, but I value it more as kind of a statement piece, or a game that you're going to show to friends as kind of more of an educational game, as opposed to something that you're just going to get out for fun at game day, because like Chris said, you're going to feel awful if you play big tobacco and win and get a really good combo.
If you had the hands that I had and felt good about the win, like, I'm sorry, like, no, like you just can't, especially because one of the mechanics in that game is the people are called victims. So, I mean, I just put it out there for everyone right now. Like, it is an experience. It's definitely not for everyone. But to your point, it is kind of a piece of art. It is an educational piece, which we've talked about on this channel with, for example, Heading Forward and other things that have been mentioned. Obviously, Heading Forward, not a 2-player game, but it has that same kind of experiential vibe. For me, this one a lot heavier than Heading Forward, but in my opinion. But yeah. But no, I'm glad. Thank you for bringing that one up, though, because that was a really interesting play, to say the least. And I played that last week for the first time. So
yeah, awesome. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with, and I've got my own opinions, but I'm going to keep them to myself.
When's next cardboard time coming out?
Tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. So if you want to go and get on it early, you can get right up at 5 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. Or if you're in the UK, it'll probably be at a normal time for you.
And make sure you subscribe, right? So they can just get it without even thinking about it.
Exactly. It just shows up, and then you can forget about it there.
Love it.
It'll be great.
We got numbers, so
yeah, exactly. And then you can go back and you can binge like Netflix or whatever.
Oh man. Well, Arwen, is always a pleasure. Thank you for popping on with us. We always love to see you. So and definitely appreciate all the good suggestions, and always bringing us a new game that maybe we haven't heard of before, which was always wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Later.
Later.
Bye.
All right.
So we had some comments in there, and we probably should go back to that other list and start and work our way back down, because
so that one list started us off at 7 Wonders Duel. So that was Sarah. Let's go back to Sarah, because the next one here is Santorini,
which has a 3-player and 4-player mode.
It does.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's still fun.
It is fun. I do.
Targi.
Oh, that's on my list.
That's on my list.
It's on my list.
All right. Well, how about this? I'll start with it on my list, and it's my number 6. How about that? So designed by Andreas Steiger. Huh?
It's my number 6 too.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Barrows?
We all know what this is. It was my number 1 game of all time last year.
Oh.
It's my number 1 2-player game.
Okay, you could talk about it.
Here's the deal. Targi is a game that the board is going to change every time in the middle of a board, but the cards on the outside are the same every single time. And what's really cool about this game is you're placing the workers on the outside, and at the intersecting points, you're going to get those cards where they're intersecting, and it might be these resources or these other cards that you're going to have to pay for. And the reason we're trying to collect these cards, if you have not played, is we're trying to build a tableau that's going to collect us the most points at the end of the game. They've got victory points right on them. You're going to get victory points based on how you build your tableau. And the cards have abilities in some of these cases. So some of these cheaper cards that are going to be in there might say, hey, by the way, you can place on the spot that's blocked by the robber. because there's this little robber guy moving around the board and you can't place a piece where that is normally, except of course if that card is in your tableau. So that's the kind of thing that's happening in this game. And it's a game that when it got introduced to me just skyrocketed up my list because it has so much variety every single time you play it. And yes, you can start to learn and know the cards, right? But I don't know, this game every single time that I play it is just it's a little bit different, and its replayability is so high. I think I played this, I think it was like over 100 times last year, I think I said. So yeah, this is definitely my number one when it comes to 2-player games. And it would not matter, I'm just going to say this right now, it wouldn't matter if this was 2-player only or just 2 players. This would be number one. This is right up at the top. I want to give a shout out too, because to Andreas, because he's one of the first people who was on, not one of the first, but he was one on Creators Corner. He had kind of a semi-okay internet connection, so he cuts out in and out a little bit, but it's still a really worthwhile conversation and one of the nicest people I ever met. And I remember very much so from our conversation, him talking about just the excitement when his game started showing up in like the local grocery store by him. And I mean, you don't have Targi in our local stores here, but by him, he's literally saying that they get selling on the grocery stores or the local stores. And it's a game that he pitched, just so people know, because he tells the story. He pitched, and if it didn't get picked up, he basically said that was going to be it, and he was going to enjoy his game. And so I am so grateful that it got picked up. But yeah, this is my number one. I love it. I'll let you guys talk about it, but I could tell people about this game all day long. So I have to stop myself at some point.
I mean, I'll just say I was late to the party on this game because, and again, early in me being in the hobby, it wasn't much of a looker, right? I saw it on some lists and I was like, ah, this is brown and boring and salt, like, come on.
Yeah.
And when my buddy Steve introduced it to me, I was like, oh man, every turn you're mad about something.
Mm-hmm.
Every turn you're going to be mad about something, and it just goes to show, like, it just proved, Espen, it goes what you were saying with Seven Wonders Duel. It's just you must pay attention to what your opponent is gathering and building in their tableau, or the game is going to be over before you realize it. That happens to me quite often in this game.
I mean, I feel like with this game, I thoroughly enjoy it too. I feel like it doesn't have it as much as Seven Wonders personally, and the reason why I feel like it's because there's so little cards available. It's very likely whatever you're taking is just going to mess with your opponent. Even if you're not doing it maliciously, you're always messing with your opponent, either where you placed it, because the issue, right, where you place your worker, you can't place your worker across the street from an opponent's worker.
Right. So there's a lot of intersections, but they get eliminated very, very often.
There's a certain point where you're blocking someone. You're not really intentionally blocking them. You're just kind of like going for your own cards. So, a lot of times I block or get blocked, and it's not anything personal. It's just like, that's what I needed.
That's part of the reason I like it, though, because I do think there's times you might get like, I wanted that spot, but you're never like truly angry about it. It's like, oh, you got this. Next time I'm going to get what I need.
Yeah.
And then there's the spot in the bottom right that you can actually place it that lets you go anywhere that someone didn't pick, and that within one of your rows there. And then to me, it's like, there are some strategies you can play to it, but at the same time, like, it's just such a different game every time. And that because you're constantly potentially taking the spot from someone, you do need to think, like you said, Anthony, about what someone else is doing, even with what they're trying to build on their tableau, because they're going to get more points at the end of the game if they have a tableau that has all three have the same type of card in there, in the top row, middle row, and bottom row. So for example, the same type 4 in a row, same type 4 in a row in the second row, and then the same type 4 in a row in the third row, they're getting more points at the end than they would otherwise. So you got to be really mindful, like, oh man, do I want to block them or make it so they aren't going to be able to build the best possible tableau? Or do I really want to get this card that's going to power me? What's the right call? There's a lot of AP, and I mean it in the best of ways, because I don't think it overpowers you, but it's like just enough.
I also like that you're playing against the limitations. I feel like a lot of times, because you're only limited to the 3 rows of 4 cards, and then you're only limited to 1 card in your hand. You're only limited to 10 total resources and 3 total gold. So it's a balancing act of determining, okay, I want to get a lot of resources, but I don't want to get too much, or else I have to ditch them, and that never feels good, just getting resources and tossing them. And then it's like, I do want to get that card, but I don't really have the money to buy it yet, or the space for it. And then if I do have the money for it, I need to spend a whole turn just to play that card.
Right.
So there's a great card you can play, and you're going to need to pay resources on the next card.
Yeah.
Meaning you can't do it, because if you do it, now you're going to have to give up a victory point.
Yeah.
So
I think that trade-off I like more than so much the stabbery in this one. It's more like like, how do I balance this? And then of course it's like, of course he took the one thing I wanted to balance. And so.
And then you have those raids that happen every few turns too, where you're
the robber. Yeah.
Unless you have some kind of defense.
My favorite card remains the card that makes it so you don't have to pay for the raid.
Yeah.
If that card's on the board, I want it every single time. It's just too good as far as
I still haven't done the expansion.
The expansion is something I can get to the table if anyone interested here. It's not online, so obviously anyone who
what was that expansion called again?
I think it's just called Targi the Expansion.
Yeah, it was. I just wanted you to say it.
He makes me say it. There's Targi. There's like a Targi more stuff thing that's not in the States too that I want. But I love Targi.
And that was our number 6, and your number one favorite 2-player only game was Targi.
Yeah, looks like Bez is here. Zoe's here, Bez. By the way.
Hey, Zoe.
Hello.
And Attorney Copy is waiting in the green room.
Oh, yes.
Attorney Copy.
Copy.
Our good friend Ian. Yeah, let's bring him in. In 3 and 2 and 1. Who's bringing him in? I'll press it. Hang on.
Press the face.
Ian, are you there?
Yeah,
let's bring him in. 3 and 2 and 1. We hear you on echo. Ian?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
I hear you.
Yep, we do hear you.
Oh, excellent. Hang on a second. I just realized that my other computer, I don't have my volume up. There you go. I'm assuming you guys said you could hear me because your lips moved.
We hear you. We don't see you, but I believe it's you.
No, it is me. It is not my voice impersonator. But no, I've been putting the little one down, so I'm not dressed for public consumption at the moment.
That's okay. That's okay.
Save your blushes. But yeah, no, great. I've been listening to it as I've been putting our little one down. Some great choices. But I wanted to take you guys back to old school.
Of course.
And I am talking like late 80s old school. So it is old. 2 great Games Workshop games that are fairly long out of print. But the first 2-player game is first edition Space Hulk.
Hang on, let me pull that up.
All right, this is one of the games that got me into gaming when I was a kid.
1989.
So first edition Space Hulk was effectively the movie Aliens in a box.
Mm-hmm.
So there was an earlier game by a publisher called Leading Edge, which played up to 9 players. That was kind of cardboard and a little bit clunky in terms of its combat. Mm-hmm. Not quite roll and move, but it felt like a roll and move. And then suddenly Games Workshop put out Space Hulk. And it became this battle between the Terminators, who were really well armored, but really clunky and slow to move. But their actions played in real time. They had 3 minutes to make their whole turn. And then the Gene Stealers, which were the aliens, which came on the board as blips.
Yeah.
The Terminator player had no idea how many blips are kind of coming in at each entrance. And they just overwhelmed with numbers. So this game became this great experience of, man, how long am I going to survive? I'm getting all these Stealer onslaughts. And the game was designed for each scenario to play in around about 45 minutes. So the idea is that you would then flip. So it became this true tactical battle where during each gaming session, you'd have the opportunity to play both the 3-minute Terminator and then the Gene Stealer. So you could truly decide who was the better player at a tactical level. So to me, that was a classic in terms of design, because it was a real kind of to and fro and had some really clever mechanics about allowing you to use actions in the Gene Stealer phase if you were the Terminator, and then the hidden movement from the Steelers. There were a couple of expansions that came, but I just thought that was an incredible 2-player game like nothing I'd ever played, and it is still something that I will play today.
And you have every edition of this too.
I do. I have all 4 editions, the expansions, the campaign game. So it made an impression on a kind of a preteen Ian when I was growing up in the UK.
We're overdue on this one. I know that.
Yeah, it's just an incredible tactical battle, and I've heard some of your chat today about the idea of kind of the to and fro, the choices you have to make at a tactical level in some of the more modern designed games. But to me, this was just a masterpiece of design and a masterpiece in terms of building suspension. Yeah. And the majority of the games ended up with, how long can I just survive? So it really captured this idea of desperation in the game. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If anyone's lucky enough to grab hold of a copy or play at a convention, it is well worth the experience.
I'm lucky enough to grab a hold of you, sir, because you have all 4 editions, and we will play this at one point. I already recommended. I already suggested I want to do 3rd edition first.
Okay, yeah. So each edition brought something different, or cleaned or tidied something up. But for me, this was the classic one.
Nice.
So that was my first throwback. My second throwback, again, and it's quite relevant given we've just had Super Bowl weekend, is Blood Bowl.
Oh,
Blood Bowl.
Yeah.
All right. So fantasy football in a box. Another one of Games Workshop's big games. And I want to say, so you've pulled up the first edition.
You want that one?
Well, I could do either the first edition, second printing red box, which is what you've pulled up, or you can pull up the second edition, which is my favorite. So
this one right here,
Blood Bowl second edition, 1988. So you can see kind of I got into games around late 80s as a kid. So this had this wonderful astrogranite polystyrene pitch that you can see in that banner. Came with 2 teams, humans and orcs. Different end zone banners that you could change. A really great book with great photographs, great artwork, great details. But this was basically fantasy American football, as I called it in the UK at that time. But fantasy football, as you guys would call it, just the football.
That's what we call it, yes.
And it really captured to me not only football, the sport, in terms of the throwing, the passing, but it also introduced this element of kind of Warhammer fantasy battles. So the Warhammer skirmish game that Games Workshop kind of really pushed out in the 80s and is still going strong in, I think, Age of Sigmar is the latest iteration, sort of 35, 40 years later. So it amalgamated these two, and suddenly you chose your team. You wanted the orcs, you just punched your way through to the end zone. You wanted to play the elves, you were very refined and you moved and passed the ball around and you basically tried to dodge anyone who tried to punch you. You wanted to play the dwarfs, you were really slow and stumpy and short in your movement, but you were pretty stout. The humans were a bit of an everything. Later iterations introduced other teams such as necromantic teams, Chaos All-Stars, so 2-headed Skaven, giant rats. And each team played completely asymmetrical. And then you could hire star players who brought different things to the table. So what I liked about this game, it was this real tactical battle. And as a UK kid growing up, it was great to kind of understand maybe football in a different way. But what I also liked was it had campaign rules. So you could buy and invest in your team. And then if you played in a league or a campaign, each time you won, you got experience points. Use that to augment your individual players with skills. You could use it to hire cheerleaders. You could use it to hire star players. You could buy fan points or fan factor, which you could then translate into benefits in your next game. So I really liked this 2-player game for the tactical element, and then kind of the strategic element of managing your team during a league or campaign. And I think a lot of these earlier games from the late 80s, you know, if you've followed gaming over sort of 25 years or so, you can see elements that these games introduced and that were completely novel. You can see them in modern games now. And I think that's an homage almost to the quality of the design that some of these bigger companies like Games Workshop put out, you know, 30, 35 years ago. But I just like the fact you could go to a store and I would buy this for £30.
Oh, man.
At the time, that was about $45, $50 because the dollar was pretty weak against the pound back then. So this was about $50. So look what you're getting. You're not getting that star player in the companion book, but you're pretty much getting everything else for $50.
Yeah.
2 full teams, plastic pictures, great rule book, a kind of team book, polystyrene pitch. You know, the value and the quality was there. And then this was a great game because, you know, all your mates would buy a different team, and then within a month you're running a league with painted miniatures. And you're developing your characters and your star players as you move through.
I love it.
Yeah, we got to try this one.
I like that you bring this one up. Bez, by the way, pointing out that I love it. You need to prioritize your actions in a Blood Bowl in terms of importance and probability, given that your turn ends when you lose a die roll. So
yeah, so there are different. Yeah, basically your turn would end if you turn the ball over, if you lost something. So you think about actions like movement, blitz. So that was a move and then a fight, or a throw. Throw was kind of really risky. So often you'd set up all your teams and how your individuals would move, and then the last thing you would do is kind of the throw, because that was the opportunity where the longer you're throwing, you can see on the right hand side of that screen, there's like a black and red see-through ruler. That was how you measure your throw. Obviously, the closer it is to the thrower, it worked, as we saw in the last 2 seconds of overtime last night.
Yeah.
The longer away it is, the harder it is. So the game actually really captured, I think, the dynamic aspects of football as a sport with gamified mechanics. So it was a really clever design. And then you throw in, if you used to play Warhammer, you threw in all the fantasy lore on top of football. So this had its origins in kind of the old world of Warhammer Fantasy that GW created. So I just thought it was incredible. And what I think is great about this game, it exists today in what effectively is either 5th or 6th edition. There's been 2 printings of its new iteration, some slight tweaks, but this was kind of rejuvenated back in about 2016, and I think came back out in maybe 2021, something like that.
Yeah, I see the 2016 edition one here, and then Blitz Bowl.
And then Blitz Bowl came out as kind of like a chain bookstore exclusive, which is a shortened down version, which introduced a few elements in a spin-off game called Dungeon Bowl. But the idea was to draw more people in. So Blitz Bowl plays a lot faster. It's a little bit more streamlined. And the idea is it's played in this underground cavernous kind of one-room dungeon. There's pillars to get in your way. But it's like it's almost a bit like a flag football in the way it plays. You know, if you're thinking about a real sport. So I think a 2-player game to me that has a tactical and a strategic element, has the asymmetry this game has, that allows you to build a campaign, but is still going strong 40 years later almost. What a design.
And a lot of uncertainty too, I'd imagine. And you have to be okay with that. Like obviously with dice, there's uncertainty. And you know, some people shy away from that and like, oh, it's too random. But you know, I kind of like that because there's that edge, there's that grit to it. You know what I mean?
But to me, the uncertainty really plays into the theme.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not uncertainty for the sake of it. Oh, we've got to come up with a panic. Let's do a die roll. It's let's really examine how sport unfolds. Oh yeah, sport does have a real element to look, but we can mitigate that look. So in here, we can mitigate that look by using cheerleaders to boost our players' morale, kind of to higher fan factor, so the crowd are getting behind us in real life. Yeah, and then you can mitigate it as you build up the skills of your players. So suddenly now maybe throwing the ball in the dying seconds of your turn is a real possibility with maybe like an 85% chance of success. So it was a bit of a math puzzle, which was good for a minis game. But again, a real tactical battle. And if you knew what you're doing, played in about an hour and a half.
Man, we should.
So
right.
nice.
That's what we're doing, right? It's a 2-player. Because I know you've been wanting to do a bunch of old school games too. So
yeah, I'd love to do like a bit of a GW kind of fun. Do some old school GW stuff. But yeah, you've covered some of the ones that I was going to also talk about, and I have a feeling you may be covering some of the other 2-player games that I'm a fan of.
We likely will. I know. But by the way, when you were talking about Blood Bowl, part of me was thinking too, like the similarities to the most recent Wolf of Design game, the Trick Shot. You know.
Oh yeah, that's another great game. I know.
There's definitely a lot of similarities there too.
Yeah,
I know Barrows has a copy.
Big
of
fans of that. Yeah, I've got a copy too. That's a great game, but I think all these games only exist because of what people like Jervis Johnson did and Blood Bowl did as a kind of IP. So long ago, I've just seen Dr. Game Fan say I need to give a class on the history of board games.
I mean, you sort of do.
Yeah,
you do every convention. Be sure to look for him at Gen Con doing it.
Look for me at Gen Con playing Space Hulk, because that's what I did for 8 hours last Gen Con. But yeah, I do speak at Trade Day, so I do some other stuff at Trade Day. I don't normally do a history of board games, but actually maybe that might be a good idea. But yeah, I just thought I'd throw those out there because I think when we think about classic games now, we tend to default to kind of like Targi, or we default to maybe like iterations of bigger games like Seven Wonders and stuff. So we're thinking about games that are like 10 years old as being classic, or 20 years old. But really, I think 2-player concept games in the commercial world about 40 years ago with Blood Bowl. And then we go back to kind of ASL as it was originally conceived, as a 2-player game.
Yeah.
So to me, 2-player games, we're talking about classic 2-player games. We're going back like 50, 60 years before.
I mean, honestly, at that point,
we can go
chess,
back to
Royal Game of War,
we can go back to SETI, yeah.
I will say it's not on my list, but for example, Stratego is one that I have loved since I was a kid. It's not on this list today, but I think I saw in the chat earlier, and that's one I've loved. And I see hints of that in things these days. So they really have evolved from these. And I think going back and thinking about what got games where they are today, some of those mechanics exist in just games like this. So I'm so glad you brought this one up.
Yeah,
it's good. Oh, I'm glad I could take a different perspective, and I will sign off and let you guys continue with your list, and I'll be lurking in the background, watching and listening.
We'll stay in the chat. Don't roll your eyes too much.
I'll see you guys all soon, and maybe I'll start planning that history of board games class.
I'm ready.
All right, guys.
Ian, thank you.
Later, Ian.
All right, man. Take care. See you guys.
Bye.
Before we go into anything else, I want to take a brief moment. I'm not going to take more of a minute on this, but I did have one update that I wanted to share today with the community. And I didn't want to wait too long into the video to do it, just because I know at some point some people go to bed. And that is an important Patreon update. And I'll keep this quick. But just so everybody knows, we've added a new tier to our Patreon. I'll drop a link to our Patreon in the chat so you can check it out if you're interested. But we added a very appropriately named Vagrant tier to our Patreon. And it's really just you want to support the channel type tier. That's all it is. It's $1, nothing crazy. But if you want to support the channel, but we made some updates, and it's a really important update. And that's the reason I wanted to mention on the show. We were doing and trying to do a daily podcast, and it was just
weekly, not daily.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, weekly, not daily. But weekly was enough, right? And we decided that it wasn't the right choice, so we want to do something a little bit different. So we're going to be doing one custom Patreon video per month that's thematic to something that you all are looking for. Might be a playthrough, might be a conversation. It could be a lot of different things. So we're changing it up. So anyone from the tracks, which is $3 level and up, is going to get that. In addition, at our $5 or passenger level, we're going to be doing tabletop swag. So anytime we make new swag, you're going to get that swag. And then for those of you who have never looked at our Patreon, our $10 or engine level, you actually get at the end of your 1 year, you get to pick something from the Tabletop Express library to put in your library. We're going to send it to you with that discounted shipping.
Yeah, it's usually a review copy of a game that we get. So whatever review copies that we get, we don't sell. We just give them to patrons after the year mark.
And I think it's important to note the one thing, obviously, you can look at the details. I'm not going to harp on this. This isn't a sales pitch. I just really wanted to make sure I informed everybody. But this is incredibly important to those of you who are Patreon supporters. We're also going to be giving you 1 month free of your Patreon support as a thank you for all the support you've given us over this time. So you might see some money coming back to you, and I just wanted you to know why. The Patreon wasn't canceled. We're just giving you money back as a thank you. So just giving you a heads up on that one. But I'm going to drop a link on that, and let's get back to talking about these games.
All right, cool. Well, I'm going to go on to my number 8. Hope you don't mind. Wait, or you want to go down that list?
Well, we could
go
go
mentioned.
There was a lot mentioned, so I think we should go through this list.
All right, go through the list.
All right. Let's go back up to.
I know my number 8 was mentioned.
The original list from. Woo, man, chat is hopping. All right, here we go. Here's Sarah. Talking about Targi.
Pokemon.
Pokemon. No for that. All right.
No Pokemon
on my list. I know it's on Brian Chandler's list.
There you go. More about cats. All right. Splendor Duel is a great time as well. Speaking of games with a dual version.
Then
is this
we're going to have to
list?
pause. We're going to have to pause for a moment because Splendor Duel is my number 7.
Number 7.
Yeah. So Splendor Duel, it's not to say I don't like Splendor because I enjoyed Splendor, but Splendor, I don't know, something over time, I wasn't playing it as much. I recognized it for the classic that it was, but I felt after playing Splendor Duel was the one I really needed to own because there was something about this game. And one of the things I love about Splendor Duel, there's first and foremost 3 ways to win. You can win by having 20 or more prestige points. You can have 10 or more crowns on your cards, which is a newer piece. And then if you have 10 or more prestige points of the same color, you're also going to win. Now, the thing about this game is the board that you're seeing gets set up. You're drawing from this bag and you're putting in, and then you're going and you can see the arrows showing the way that you're going to place them on that board. But when I'm going to pick up my pieces in this, I'm picking them up organically from each other. Is that right? Yeah. So with this one, you're picking up that way, but you can only pick up so many. And there's these gold ones that you're seeing, those yellow, they look yellow here, but those gold ones are the equivalent of the wild. You can only get the one when you do that. And the board itself has obviously the cards on the side here. Those cards also have abilities. And this is the thing I really thought was cool, because these cards having capabilities add something more to the game for me. And those abilities are things like take another turn immediately, or place this card so it overlaps with a bonus. You can also get additional privilege, and you can use privilege in this game as an action,
right?
Yeah. So if you return one more privilege, for each privilege you turn, you could take 1 gem or 1 pearl of your choice from the board, and anywhere from the board. So, and then there's a very neat replenish action that happens where you have the ability to spend 1 to replenish the board because you just don't like what's there and you want to draw out of the bag. Because ultimately, after you spend, the stuff eventually is going to get back on that board. But the stock of what you could take is coming off the board, and then you're getting it back onto the board. And the way it's coming is coming from this bag pull. And it's just a really neat experience for me in playing this. And for some reason, it just was a refresher, a more refreshing version of Splendor for me. And I just really dug it. And so for that reason, Splendor Duel pops onto this list. I would prefer, if you're going to ask me to play Splendor, and there's two of us, one, this is better at 2 players for obvious reasons, but I just prefer really Splendor at a 2-player count with this than any count of Splendor at this point. I just think it's very well implemented.
I agree. I agree so much so that it is in fact my number 2.
Wow.
Wow.
It is a better, heavier, more strategic game than the original. And I still own the original, and the original has its place in my collection because it is a very welcoming, easy to teach, entry-level, gateway game, whatever you want to call it, in Splendor. But this game really, really amps up the base mechanic of Splendor with all of this other thinking going on with the way you can take from the board, like you said, the abilities on some of the cards, the multiple paths to victory, which they did kind of in the Splendor expansion, did that a little bit, but it still doesn't compare to this 2-player version. The first time I played this
game, the expansion of Splendor has some good things, but mostly meh.
Yeah, I think there's maybe 4 modules in it, and one of them I think just added different end game thresholds to like.
That's the best piece of the expansion, and it's in this, and that's in the sense of the 3 ways to win.
I agree. First time I played this game, I was like, man, this is something special. And it really, again, I mean, we're repeating myself a lot, but it has that back and forth, and that really got to look at what your opponent is doing. It's just not, develop my little tableau here and get my freebies every now and then like the regular game. This is really, really, really thinky. I love this one. I'm so happy with the implementation that I'm glad that this game came out and that it's doing well. I mean, I've seen a lot of people talk about it.
And Anthony, I don't know about you, but to me, one of those pieces you talk about watching and making sure you're aware, it's the crowns piece, because I might be doing pretty well, but suddenly I realize this person has a bunch of crowns.
Yep.
I'm like, oh no, they're walking towards the victory because of the crowns they have. I might be going for the points. Do I go for that, or do I go to block the crown? Again, it just, there's some really good choices that come from that, in my opinion.
Yeah. Big fan of this one.
Yeah, going back to it, my favorite part about this one has to be the placement of the chips and how you have to draft from them, because there's a certain, that's like the hate portion of it, where I don't want to spend a turn to add the chips in, because that's going to benefit you as well, because I want you to waste your turn.
Yep.
Or waste your scroll, rather, to add those chips in.
Yes, it's a game of chicken to an extent as well.
For sure. That was Splendor Duel.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, lots of love for Splendor Duel in the chat here as well. So let's see here. Chips. Yes, chips are good.
Chips are good. Such a great design. Yeah.
Yep. Better than the original for sure. Girly Gamer, Watergate has not been on the list yet, but it has been mentioned.
Until now.
Yeah.
I'm just jumping right in. It's my number 8.
Good. You could talk about it, but you're going to have to show it on my board too.
Oh, all right, fine, good. What number is it for you?
Oh, it's number 3.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you talk about it though.
Designed by Matthias Kramer. This is a game that came out in 2019, and I was pumped to play this game when I saw a Watch It Played notification that Rodney Smith was teaching a game called Watergate, and I'm like, yeah, I want to play Watergate. Like, so it's a game. It's a 2-player asymmetric game where one player is Nixon and the other are the journalists trying to take down Nixon. And the idea is you're trying to connect enough evidence to Nixon in like a route building kind of way, which is like on like one of those like Charlie Day crazy conspiracy boards, while President Nixon is trying to flip over the evidence pieces, blocking his connection to any of the evidence points on the other opposite ends of the screen. And you're trying to do that before you're trying to make sure you make it to the end of your presidency. If you can make it to the end of your presidency without getting caught, congratulations, you win. And man, it's just echoing what's. Anyways, I'm gonna stop before they re-implement this game. But I really love this game. It tells such a story. You feel that tension. You feel that constant struggle of, oh my gosh, I gotta get this guy, or oh my gosh, I gotta get away from these guys, because it's just Oh man, yeah, and Nixon was the original Pepe Silva. Yeah,
My first play of this was with you.
it was, and I knew you would like this one.
Yeah, and the pull that the kind of that back and forth pulling that's happening is so big in this one, because you've got a board that's going up where you're trying to get the influence, because if you're Nixon, you need to have it to win. But even if you're the editors, you get different advantages by having that influence.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're kind of just, the back and forth and card play in this one is so well designed. And what I really like is that moment when you've got that great play and someone has then like this guy ready to go. No, I'm going to block that. And you've only got so many times that you can do that. So really thinking, I'm going to do it now in this pivotal moment. And you can really feel those swings. And then we'll go back and forth. It's a very well balanced game, in my opinion. And you don't always see that in this type of game. We talked earlier with Arwen, but about a game, obviously, doubt is a product that, man, right up front, someone's got an advantage, right? And I still am not sure if there's balance there, and I don't think there is, because it's not intended to be. This is well balanced. It's designed to be well balanced, and it plays beautifully, and you want to keep playing it. Like, I play one game of this, and I want to play it. So, yeah,
it's just a game that stuck the landing. You get excited about this kind of like theme, and like how are they going to turn this into a board game? And they do it so well. Like, it really like pulls you in. So if this is something that you want to try out just because of the theme, it's worth it for that alone. And if you want like a 2-player asymmetric game that's very tug of war, takes probably an hour on your first play, and any future plays could be 30 to 45 minutes. Yeah. I recommend checking out Watergate if you can.
Yeah, I agree. I got nothing more to add.
Yeah.
Play the 5th.
All right.
And I love that idea that Rachel has about a beanie for that. Like, I want to look into that. We'll look into that.
Yeah. That came out. There was the question earlier on of is beanie going to be created, and I love the way of what we could do there. Obviously, I want a Tabletop Express beanie.
Yeah,
it goes without saying, but that would be really good to do. So we'll think about that one for sure, and we'll make sure we get Rachel a proper beanie.
Yeah,
for her request. So we talked about a bunch here. Did we miss any that got brought up, Anthony? Because we
got a feeling we
we definitely did. Let's someone mentioned boop and or boop.
I didn't put it on my top 10.
List.
Don't get wrong, I like boop, and I like boop better.
Yeah, I've only played it once, so I need more plays, I think.
But it's not top 10 good, nor is Donuts, which I think that got mentioned. Donuts does not fall into my top 10.
Yeah, it's not a 10 player. Yeah.
Oh, but
that time you killed me.
Zoe is spot on here, because
that time you
killed me.
That time you called it.
That time you killed me. It's number 2.
Yep.
Boom.
I love this game. That time you killed me, and I remember, actually, it was very funny. At the time I was active on Twitter, I refused to call it X because that's just stupid. But at the time that I actually finished this, I got through all the envelopes and I had shared it. And I remember getting a response from Peter himself, basically. And I've talked to Peter before, but Peter's response was, I think you're the first person to officially confirm they've got through all the envelopes. So that's how much I like this game. I rocketed through this. And there are a bunch of envelopes in this game, which I will not spoil for people what they do. But in that time you killed me, it is a 2-player game. But yes, it kind of does look like, a 3 chessboards, right? 3 smaller chessboards. Those are past, present, and future. And you're going to have one of your pieces on each of those boards. One of you starts in the present, one of you starts in the past. The neat thing about this one is they add some other elements into it. And one of the ones that you see, and it's very intentional because I don't want to spoil much for anybody else about what else comes in this game, is a theme of growth in the first game. And it's the first thing you're going to see, where you can plant these seeds that grow into bushes, that they grow into trees. And in that first game that you actually play, you're able to actually plant a seed in the past and then jump to eventually when you're in the future, push that tree on one of the players. So, I mean, these are the kind of crazy things happening. But the other thing is, in this game, it's not just bumping into someone that's going to eliminate them. You want to eliminate, you do want to eliminate the other players in this game, but pushing them doesn't do anything. It just moves them. You want to either push them into the wall or push them into into their other pieces. So there's a paradox and they're both eliminated, but you basically need to do it so that at this point you really only exist in one space. And when that happens, your opponent only exists in one space, you have one. But this game expands so much beyond that. The more you play, the more you open up with the different styles of gameplay that it comes with, because there's 4 boxes once you go into this, and then there's a bunch of envelopes. And well, I cannot spoil it for everybody because I want you to experience it. They add a fun little narrative to it. You could read it, whether you like the narrative or not. It's the gameplay mechanics that are really fun here. I will note the concept of this is, one of you invented time travel and the other stole the idea of the invention of time travel, and you are trying to kill each other. That is the core concept of what's happening. But it's very much an abstract game, and it is delightful. It is on Board Game Arena if anyone wants to play this ever. Though, if you do want to play it, reach out to me. I'm under the Tabletop Express handle on Board Game Arena, and I would do just the base one. I wouldn't spoil unless you wanted to get spoiled on what the other different gameplay styles are.
You know the vibe it gives me? You remember Spy versus Spy from like Mad Magazine? That's exactly what this is. This could easily be reskinned to like a Spy versus Spy game.
I want more of this. That's what I want. I just want more and more. But it expands so much. Like I said, I see Girly Gamer here. Appreciate the non-spoilers. I want people to be able to open those boxes on their own, but I just think people should try this one out. It's so much fun.
Very nice. Yeah, I played this once with you and I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I've also played it once with you, and I'd like to play it a little bit more with you.
Well, we got to play that one again, then take it to the next level, because there's more and more and more. So
nice.
All right. So Danielle came back into the chat now that she heard the correct assignment about 2-player only. And so she's got some more applicable picks here. Dice Masters.
Not on there. I really did like Dice Masters, though.
I tried to learn Dice Masters once, and I don't know if it was the person teaching it to me, but I just couldn't pick it up.
Yeah.
But it looks cool, and the dice are cool. Keyforge also was a very popular game.
It had its moment. I remember.
At its moment, every deck was completely unique, right? That was the shtick behind that. I never played that either. You guys ever play that one?
Mm-hmm. I had a lot of decks. And then I got out of it.
Did you get rid of them?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I did.
All right.
But it's easy to get back in because you just buy a deck and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
But I think, isn't there like a whole thing with that? Like they had to redo a lot of the code, and there's like a whole. I think it's coming back, or it is back already.
Okay.
But there had to be like basically a whole coding rewrite of it.
HeroClix, very similar to my experience with Dice Masters. Again, I tried to learn it once, and it was just a little too complicated for me. And to what I said before, it was, the person teaching it to me was, basically they're going to say, well, I'm going to do this, so you're going to want to do this because that's how you counter what I'm doing. And that's not really so much fun.
That was my jam in high school.
HeroClix?
Played tons of HeroClix.
Yeah, the figures are awesome. They're
I still have a whole
toys.
case. My whole case of them are upstairs in the attic.
We used to use a lot of them for D&D. Actually, it was
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look, Fantasy Flight lost the code, and New Company took it over. I saw in Danielle's the other one was Star Wars Destiny.
Star Wars Destiny. Yeah.
So that one actually sold to Danielle.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean that might be the same thing where it was because it was taught to me, and I thought it was kind of like okay, but I have a feeling if I play it again, maybe I'll enjoy it.
We got some good guesses in the comments, by the way, for some good games here. I saw a mention of looks like a few people thought Battleship or Stratego might have been what Ian was bringing up.
Yeah,
Ian
yeah. I was thinking Stratego too.
I love Stratego. I have 2 copies of Stratego.
Still
I
never
don't
played.
so
One day.
All right. Here's one that I think is a good guess.
Okay, all right. Let's kill the curiosity. It's my number 7. Undaunted, Battle of Britain, designed by Trevor Benjamin and David Thompson, published in 2023 by Osprey Games. It is look at that. Those are airplanes. Right?
Look at that.
Look at those airplanes. Okay. This game, so the Undaunted series is a series of board games mostly set in World War II. The most recent one is not going to be set in World War II. It's set in the future. Where it's a deck building it's a deck builder where you are kind of like skirmishing different groups out on the board in deck building fashion. So all your cards correlate to different chits on the map, and you'll be doing different abilities based on which cards you play. Now, the thing about what this game does and what the others don't, first of all, it uses hexagons. Secondly, they're planes, and anytime you play a card in the original ones, you're either doing like a move or you're doing an attack. In this one, you're a plane, so you're always moving at least once, and you're moving in that direction that you're pointing, which I think is awesome. Like very, very thematic. You're constantly going to be moving. You can't turtle. You're constantly moving. Constantly need to think what you're going to do. So you're moving and turning, or moving and shooting, or moving and moving some more. And then not only that, but the different planes that are different that are matching in colors, they could actually combo off each other, and they'll get either stronger or weaker if they're closer or further away. And sometimes if you want to do a specific action and your partner plane is away, you will be out of comms, and you'll have to take like different discord cards that you put into your deck that clog up your deck. If I were to suggest someone to get into the Undaunted series, this is the one I would suggest, because it is the best entry point standalone. Keeps like it in a time when I just kind of just blind bought Undaunted Battle of Britain because I've been liking all the Undaunteds, and you know, if it was any other game system where they could just keep coming out with these games, I wouldn't be really into it and wouldn't be like too attached. Like, well, you know, I have the last couple ones. I don't need to get this new one. Every time they come out with an Undaunted game, there's something different that keeps the game fresh. And Undaunted Battle Britain keeps the game the freshest I've played so far. So it's like the latest. Yeah. So yeah, I take them down. That's true. And then you can make cool airplane noises, you know.
Can I add that this is also on my list?
Oh yeah, it is. It's your number 4.
Yes, that it is. Yeah, I say this because my introduction to Undaunted was Stalingrad, by the way. Like you brought me in with Stalingrad.
Campaign only one.
The campaign only one. And from a standalone perspective, this stood out to me. And I noted I wasn't really doing campaign-based one, which is probably why Stalingrad's not here. But Battle of Britain, just from a put it on the table, pick a scenario, play it. You already talked about the movement of the planes, which I think is what made this stand out to me based on my experiences. Because the fact is, yeah, I want to go shoot that head. Oh, crud. If I do this, I'm going to have to move this, then rotate. So I have to constantly think about how am I going to get there and do what I need to accomplish. You've got a bunch of scenarios. I mean, there's so much game in this box. And so for me, Undaunted Battle of Britain, for all the reasons you said, but I believe what you said is 100% accurate. That this is I have no problem that I own this one, and not any of the other ones, because I feel like this one just satisfies everything I want from this Undaunted series.
Dan, you don't need to get through Normandy to play Battle of Britain. You can just go right to Battle of Britain. Be perfectly honest. Like you don't need to go through that one. It's still good, but it's the most like every other Undaunted that's come out since Normandy, I feel like has enhanced the system and taken the system in new directions that I feel like it needed to go. And you could still get the base experience in every box of Undaunted. And that includes Battle of Britain. And that includes North Africa. And it includes my number one choice, which was Undaunted Stalingrad. Let's keep it going. First of all, how dare you? How dare you just not have it in your list? But because I'm having such a great time with you, bud. This is great.
I am having. I did, but I was I cited what I was said at the start that I wasn't gonna. I stuck with the.
Let's keep this going. Undaunted Stalingrad is the 2-player campaign version of Undaunted, and it takes everything about Undaunted and again puts it to the next level. But what I love about this one the most is that the whole map in the game are just different segments of a larger map. And if damage happens to a particular spot in that map, like let's say like a building explodes, then that building will continue to explode and persist throughout the rest of the games. Not only that, your cards will either upgrade or downgrade based on any sorts of things that may happen within the different battles. So a lot of times you might win the battle, but you might downgrade a bunch of cards if you had, unfortunately, like run into casualties. And the story behind this is great. The writing is fantastic. There's like 2 different books, one from the Soviet perspective, the other from the German perspective, and they really do a great job with the writing of this one and kind of like pulling you in to different scenarios and getting everything set up. I am having a great time with our campaign. I feel like we're probably halfway at this point. And I'm still maybe even 2/3. No, a little bit over halfway.
I think we're a little over half, but we definitely have some to go. And I want to point out one thing about this too. One thing that I really liked is even in a game where you quote unquote lose, you can feel so good about the amount of damage you did going into the next game. It's kind of what you were talking about with, oh, I mean, you took out all these people, and now a bunch of people had to be downgraded. And so you can do a lot, even in a losing cause, right? And you never know what the new setup's going to be. That location that you destroyed suddenly is this open area, which means there's no defense from a building. And so you feel the impact of your work, but then in the end, it's all going to be resettable. Yeah. That's the piece. You're not marking up the board. You're just taking out a new piece and replacing it.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about future games. And I actually do look forward to playing this one again at a campaign setting. But yeah, Undaunted Stalingrad. Fantastic game.
Yeah. I guess we go back to the list. Remember, call-board.com is our link. Thanks to our callers tonight, of course.
So you got 2 left on your list.
Yeah.
What's up? Am I the most the least exposed here?
3 I have mine.
2. 4. I have 2, and you have 4 or 5.
He's got 5. Yeah, I have 3. You have 5, and Chris has 2.
I have 2.
All right. What's my lowest that's not open yet? Sorry. Number 5?
Number 7.
Oh, number 7. Look at that. Oh, yeah. My number 7. I was incorrect when I said that I thought Summoner Wars was the oldest game. This is the oldest game on my list, I'm pretty sure, and that is Lost Cities.
Good one.
All right.
Great choice.
A very simple card game where you're trying to get the most points in these different expeditions that you're going on, which are basically just suits, colors of cards that have numerical value from, was it 2 to 10, I think,
2
right?
to 10.
With some handshake symbols as well. So essentially, you're going to be playing cards either to discard them to the middle of that board there, or in front of the board, committing to one of those expeditions. What's brutal about this game is that the minute you place a card down and you commit to that expedition, you are 20 points in the hole on that expedition. And then you're trying to work your way out of that into positive points. You do that by playing the numerical cards in ascending order. Ideally, if you get all of them, or I think 8 of them, you get a bonus, point bonus as well. But those handshake cards, I forget what they're actually called, will multiply your point value by 2, 3, or even 4 if you have multiple of them. But again, if you commit to it, that multiplication might even be multiplying negative points, so you can really kind of get hosed. The tension in this game is incredible, and that's, I think, the theme that I'm noticing is what a lot of us tend to enjoy with these 2-player only games, is that tension. You get to a point where you don't want to get rid of any of the cards in your hand, because you either are really holding out, like you've got the 6, and you're like, oh, there's got to be the 2, 3, 4, 5 has got to be out there somewhere. Am I going to get it, or does my opponent have it? You don't want to give your opponent something, and then all of a sudden, when they commit to to one of those tracks and they play their number 5 card or whatever, now you're like, all right, now I can start discarding the number 4 and 3 and 2 of that, because I'm not going to commit to it, and they can't play them now because they already did the 5. So that gives you that little bit of a cushion to now kind of buffer and get rid of some cards to build up your hand to get the cards that you do want. The game is supposed to be played over 3 rounds. You can play just 1 round if you want a shorter game, but it's not a very long game at all. There was an expansion at some point that added a 6th suit color. I've not played with that. I don't know that it's necessary. I think this game by itself really does a great job of, again, creating that tension between the 2 players in a very relatable way to play cards, right? If you've played any kind of card game in your life, you understand this, that you're playing these cards in numerical sequence from lowest to greatest as much as you can. And that's it. That's really all you can say about this game. There's really nothing else to it besides that. It's kind of like Racco with a little bit of a different artwork on it, right? It's really simple.
It's simple to a level of perfection almost.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is just so well done.
There's a name for that. It's Knizia.
The Knizia effect. Yeah.
Yeah.
I by the way, Rachel did mention that she likes Lost Cities and the board game version. Obviously, the board game version is 2 to 4, but the board game version is fun. I actually own the board game version and like it a lot. This one definitely a top 20 2-player game.
Bez adding a beautiful tension here that gets the wager cards. Thank you. If you're going to go on that expedition or not, and that
multiplier. That multiplier, really, I'm going to play the double multiplier, and then it's like, I'm not going to get enough. Like there's so many. Great
digital version came out a few months ago too, and it's actually really good.
I didn't try the new one. I remember the old one. They lost their license though.
Yeah.
So that's the Lost Cities one that I enjoy playing with the wife and basically anybody. It's it's a pretty small footprint. The cards are a little larger than your average. I guess they're like tarot size cards. Think of a little bit of room. But you can get this game played pretty easily almost anywhere.
Yeah.
That's my number 7. All right, what else we got here? Ian's adding another 2-player game, Trick Taker. Halloween.
Have not tried. You're at a death school? What?
Button Shy. Circle of Wagons. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, as I say, we got we do have some mentions up higher, I'm noticing.
I think we have Chris, you have 2 left. You have number 6 and number 8 left.
Yes, and one of them was mentioned in the comments. I don't know if anyone else had this one though, because Dr. J Game Fan, after Marcelo talked about Battle Britain, Dr. J Game Fan mentioned Patchwork. And then we have Hive.
Pablo's played Hive underwater. That's pretty fun.
Oh, that's kind of neat.
Because it's all
Hive
like
is great.
tiles, yeah.
Hive is great, by the way.
Pelago.
For the record, Hive is one that is actually usually in a backpack with me at any given time. I just have the travel version with me usually. So,
well, Patchwork is certainly on my list. I don't know about you, Chris or Ryan. I know you all like this game.
I like it. Not on the list though.
Okay, it's my number 1.
What? Hang on. It's also my number 3.
Yeah.
But go ahead, talk about it.
Man, what is there to say that we haven't said about this game already? You're quilting, right? It's a theme that's just like, what, quilting? But man, it is the ultimate puzzle where you are trying to put these crazy polyomino Tetris bizarre type pieces into your quilt. That they're going to cost money or currency of some kind to buy them, which in the original game is buttons, and then there's all kinds of other versions of it. I recently played the Valentine's Day version a couple of nights ago, which was a nice little treat. But those pieces, once you pay for them and then place them on your quilt on your own board, there's also a time value associated with them, which is how many spaces your piece is going to move around the board. The board is not to keep score, but the board is basically the timer of the game, because once both players get to the middle, that's going to trigger the game end. Along the board, though, there's also a couple of spots where you can gain a single square, which comes in handy for sure when you want to fill in some empty gaps. But also there are some button spots that when you pass them, you're going to gain currency based on how many you have currently in your quilt as well. This is another game like Lost Cities where it's climbing out of the hole, because you can very easily get negative points. You can easily win this game with a negative score, depending on how it ends up, because at the end of the game, any blank squares you have that are not covered on your quilt, you're going to lose 2 points per. I love the drafting of this, right? Because you set up the timer board in the middle, and then all the pieces go in this giant circle around it. There's just one pawn that's basically the placekeeper, and when it's your turn, you can purchase one of the 3 adjacent tiles from that spot. There are points when you cannot afford any of them. When I played with my wife, the Valentine's one the other day, we had 3 in a row that all cost 10 buttons, right? So there comes a point where you can't buy anything. The good thing is that if you can't buy anything, or you choose not to buy something, you can always move your piece on the board, however many number of spaces it takes you to get past your opponent. The cool thing about that is you get money or buttons for however many spaces you move doing that as well. The other cool thing is that if you are farther behind on that time track and you can really plan accordingly, you can do multiple purchases before it's even the other player's turn. So there's a lot of, measuring out how far away you are, looking at your board, noticing that you have just there's only one piece out there that could fit in this spot. Are you going to get it? Is your opponent going to take it? Can you afford it once you get there? Because at the end of the game, not only are you going to lose points for the empty spaces, but you're basically just counting up how much money you have. So you also don't want to go spending crazy amounts of money on these tiles, because money is points. That's how you win the game.
Right.
Yep.
So many versions of this. There's Americana, there's Valentine's, there's Christmas, Halloween. They all play the same. The artwork is just different. Me personally, love this one. Have it, almost all versions of it. Favorite version?
Halloween.
Halloween.
Hands
Halloween
down.
is cool because it has the eyeballs and stuff.
And also it changes
And it has
some of the tiles.
Yeah.
Halloween rebalanced.
Right.
They did some rebalancing with the Halloween one, and plus Halloween just, I don't know, it's to that point, the tiles
It's cool.
that oogly.
I think I like the look of the Christmas one the most, because it's like presents, that's just very Christmas.
And it comes with a cookie cutter.
Yeah.
And it comes with a Tetris shaped cookie cutter. Yes. And my wife chiming in here in the chat. Yes, she has not been doing well. Let's see. We've played. It's on our 10x10 challenge. My son has beaten us multiple times in this game, and he's only 4.
And it works well with kids too. Like
it does.
That's my son in the picture right there, and he had a great time with Patchwork. Like he just gets it. Like you put the pieces in front of him, immediately gets it. I got to put these together. Okay, that's all you got to do.
It's great. It's such a spatial thing, and it's phenomenal. So yeah, I will play this game anytime for sure.
I want to give a shout out before we have a guest ready to come on here. We got another caller, and he's got a streak going, so we got to keep it going. But I want to just thank everybody. I mean, I love seeing how active it is. I know we went off our usual Wednesday schedule that we've been keeping, and to see all of you here tonight and as active with so many suggestions. I mean, you're helping us fill this list really quick. So,
And we did
appreciate
it
that.
so you guys could play Patchwork Valentine's Edition on Wednesday without any video commitments.
Yeah.
Actually, I think this might be my wife's favorite game too. Like that we played
okay.
together. I think she really likes Patchwork as well too.
Bye, girly gamer. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Later.
I think, guys, it's time. We got to bring in the returning. He
Cal
needs
Ripken
no
of
introduction other than the intro I just gave him.
The Iron
It's Tyler.
Horse.
Hey guys,
Howdy.
What's up?
howdy!
How are you, man?
I just finished up with my game group. We played the White Castle 3-player, and then
nice.
got another game in 3-player role player.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
got a couple games in. So I literally told the guys over there, I was like, it's at my neighbor's house. I'm like, all right, I gotta go call it and see if the show's still going. I gotta keep my
Yeah.
streak alive. I gotta keep things going here.
We have a long
got a
one. We have
reputation now.
top 10 games. So
Yeah.
that's always
And
a
we're not
long
done.
list.
So you're good on time here.
Perfect. Well, I was thinking through here. Honestly, I have two that I can think of. And the first one I didn't think of right away, but I'm like, yeah, for sure, is 1960 Making of the President.
I gotta pull that up. Not on my list.
I really enjoy that game. It's kind of what got me into. I'm surprised it didn't get me into votes for women more. But like with the card play of it, such a fun kind of like action with it. Similar style where you can do an event, you can do lobbying or something like that, and try to win states and whatnot. So to win the election. So really fun game. Educational in its own way as well too.
Yeah, it's a cool one. And I remember when I first played it, because I played Twilight Struggle first, and then I played this game, and it has a lot of similarities with that whole card-driven system. But I remember the standout moment was like the media portion. Like I think it happens like in the middle of the game, where it turns like a little side mini game, and then you get back to it. Yeah, this is a good choice.
So that's my first, and then the second is I think it's the only 2-player game that I own, and it's because of a Black Friday deal, is Star Wars the deck building game. I don't know if that's been talked about, but that one it's such a simple like deck build, like an intro, but it's still got the theme to it and the fun with it. So I've yet to actually try the solo variant that Brian Chandler shared, and that's like on BGG.
Okay.
I have it printed out and laminated, but I've yet to actually play it yet. It's sitting here in my desk right by me, but I have yet to get it played. So
I can tell you my son really liked this. We played this, picked it up. He picked it up immediately. We played it, very enjoyable from a 2-player perspective. And I mean, I'm looking forward to when more cards come into it, just because there's definitely characters I'm like, where's this one, but it is I thought it was really interesting. The only complaint I had heard about before I played it the first time was, well, sometimes you don't get enough of your cards in the market. It was never a major issue in any of my plays so far, though. I haven't had there might be one round of it, but it seems to resolve itself pretty quickly.
You could attack those cards, right? The cards that don't belong to you.
Yeah, you can attack them. So it's like you can get rid of them in that way. But again, that was the biggest complaint I had heard. I ended up getting on a deal myself, and I think you'll like it. It's a lot of fun, and it's very easy to pick up. I think that's
I've been wanting to try this. I mean, I of those kinds of games like the Star Realms, Hero Realms, Shards of Infinity still is my favorite. And Star Wars deck building I haven't tried yet, but I've heard it comparisons to all those kinds of games.
Yeah, I think the first game I played of my copy, I didn't shuffle the deck well enough, and there was just too many swings of it of that problem that you're talking about, where there's so many of one kind, then so many of another, and it's like, well,
you got to shuffle it good. Like that first shuffle's got to be really solid.
Yeah,
I'm because they're grouped together when you first get the stack.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to shuffle it. Like, I think I shuffled it like 50 times over. So just to be sure. But yeah, it's neat though, because you do have, and there's multiple ways to play, just so people know. With the setup, you could have the set systems or you could randomize. So like, I like the idea of like, you could do some building, say I'm going to pick these 3, or you could randomize, and I like the picking mechanism, because I can kind of think about what I want to do and think about, okay, maybe I'll do this one first, this one second. But yeah, once your 3 bases essentially are done, you're done. So it's enjoyable, but it plays really quick. That's one thing I'll say, is it flies. The game is not long, and it definitely does not overstay its welcome.
Yeah.
No, so that I would like to get into more button shy games to get some of those like 2 players sets in, but 2 players can be a tough count in a household where it's mostly solo games being played. So
I get it. Dive in the Halls of Hegra yet?
I haven't. I have it. It's right here. It's by my desk. I decided to read the rule book and play Wormspan. I've actually played Wormspan like 3 times in the last 4 days. So I've been stuck with that in the White Castle. I've played White Castle like 3 times in the last 3 days too. So I have a few games that I've been a little addicted to at this point. So we'll get there.
Wormspan will be played in this house soon. It's sitting right over here, so I gotta try it out.
But
it's I've looked at it. I've got that and like the extra the resources and everything. I'm like, I gotta get this to the table soon. So
we'll do it.
But yeah, no, I appreciate hopping on, and so don't worry, there'll be a post soon enough. I got the 28-30 page rule book for Halls of Hegra will definitely
honestly that video I dropped it before. I forget which one did it. There was one fantastic video that walks through the whole playthrough. Maybe it's called Shelf Life.
You shared it with me. I can share in Discord.
I think
that'd be great.
I think I put in the solo game chat too.
Okay,
but it's such a good game, so I hope you enjoy it.
Definitely will. And I know my neighbor wants to borrow it already too. So I got some encouragement to play it so he can get it to the table as well.
Nice. And that's a friendly reminder, by the way, for anyone who is interested. If you haven't, we do have a great Discord. Yes. So come join us, join the community, have some fun, and I'll drop a link here just so people can join. But we have a good time over there, and just with people like Tyler and everyone sharing and giving us ideas on games to play, giving each other games to try, or finding out if Donuts is on sale.
It's okay. This guy.
The Discord community is the reason why I am rounding out my Rolling Realms pack. Rachel is posting me the Expeditions pack, so I cannot talk about how great this community is. So
nice.
We'd love to hear it.
But yeah, we're glad you're a part of it.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I'll be in the chat. So
all right. Have a great night.
See you, Tyler.
See you in the chat.
Cool. We have another guest in the wings.
It's bumping.
Oh man, we're flying through. We're gonna bring in Bez. I believe this is the second time now that Bez has joined us.
Yeah,
on camera. Bez has been in the chat the past few times too. So come aboard, Bez. Welcome.
Hey, Bez.
Ooh. How are you all?
Good.
Fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm generally well. It's 11:19, almost 11:20 here in Bangkok, and I've just had a couple of cucumbers, like tiny little things, and tomatoes, because that's what you have when you're on a budget in Bangkok. Like, there's amazing veg. And hello, Rachel, and everyone else in chat.
Nice.
Shall I explain my pick?
Yeah,
go for it.
Okay, so like, I was thinking for the last 1 minute, and obviously I could always be really egotistical and say couple. If you like word games, shameless plug. It's a 2-player cooperative word game. But what I genuinely think is the best 2-player only game, and for me, it's not even blinking close the best 2-player game is Go. It's like, we've talked so much about games with a narrative, games where, like Stalingrad, you have to go through this long campaign. Go is amazingly adaptable. Anyone can play it. Just get like some pennies and some, other types of coins, or like the cheapest things you can get. Make your own boards. Like, I've got a board that's 5x5 just for teaching people. 5x5 is a terrible game. But once you played for like a few times and my opponent can beat me, then we go to 7x7, and 9x9 is accepted as like the smallest interesting game. But honestly, even that 7x7 for beginners, it's totally fine. And to Pablo, who says, oh, the learning curve scares me, I totally get that. Every game is all about inaccessibility. To me, like whether it's narrative skill or being in the spotlight or dexterity or real time or strategic complexity, every game has that thing. But Go, I mean, my favorite part of Go, right, isn't the fact that you're reaching thousands of years into the past and you playing by basically the same rules that are unchanged. It's changed less than chess in a much longer history. My favorite thing about it isn't that placement games, intrinsically, they do not lead to stalemates like Hive and chess. You can be locked in this moving things around. With Go, you just fill up the board. And Go is such a simple way to ensure that stalemates do not occur. And I love the fact that there's this curve to the game. You start out feeling the board, and then you're like, oh, what if I do that? Oh, and then at the end, there's this amazing mid-game battle. And sure, by the end, most pros will have, one of them will have conceded because they consider the end game as, well, it's a waste of time. But as players, we are exploring that space together. And that exploration is the heart of Go. The fact that it can be adapted to different sizes of boards, the fact that, most importantly, the main reason I love it is the handicap system. If we were to play, let's say you had never played before, I would teach you on a 5x5, then we'd play 7x7, and I'd give you a few extra stones. We would be playing an evenly matched game, essentially, because your extra stones would make up for the lack of skill, and it's not about who wins or loses an individual game. It's about us being on an exploratory journey together, working out what this framework of rules is possible. What's possible within this framework of rules.
Yeah.
Sorry for misspeaking, but like it's that shared exploration which is, I think, at the heart of games, and Go, to me, epitomizes more than any other.
Yeah. You're
I have
selling me
limited
on Go right
experience.
now. Because
I have limited experience with this one, but you make some really good points, and it's I mean, God, this is I was looking up while you were talking about it on BGG, just how far this goes back and the earliest mention of it, and I mean it's amazing. I mean, when you talk about the history of this one, so I wonder how many people have not played it. Because I think I've maybe experienced it once and never went back. And you're making me think about, well, I should probably go back to this, because you're right. You could very easily bust this out and play this. You can make that game for yourself.
Yeah.
You have to take the time to explore it, but I would very much consider it an exploration. And like any exploration, like if you're going around your neighborhood, you can do a really thorough tracking and go through every street. And it's the same here, like people dedicate their lives to it, and you could go as deep as you want. But if you just want to dabble, if you just want to play for a few hours, hopefully you'll have enjoyed those few hours. You don't have to plunder the depths of this game. It is absolutely a game that you can enjoy over one evening and then never touch again. And you'll have just enjoyed the surface level of it.
Yeah, like I said, I wonder how many people have not realized it exists too, unfortunately. But it is,
or just dismiss it, for like the new thing. Right.
I mean, but you're talking the earliest mention of this appears. It's like let's see, it appears in Analects of Confucius, 551 to 479 BC. That's the earliest mention according to BGG. Now that may not be. There may be a more accurate source on that, but that's on BGG.
I mean, people have major arguments of how old it is. And some people in China have like legends that this is the oldest game, but there's no actual proof of that. There's no historical artifacts that have been dug up. But the thing about Go is also that the pieces are actually very generic. And if you think about the boards, that would disintegrate far faster than the stones would. And if you just see a bunch of black and white stones, you have no idea where that's from. But fundamentally, there's no way of telling exactly. But it is definitely an ancient game. And what can be said is that once the rules forego, it's just you put down the pieces, you take turns to put down pieces, and if your pieces are connected by a line, they form a group. And if your group has no adjacent points that are empty, then it's been surrounded by your enemy and you're basically suffocated. Yeah. And this sounds like brutal and vicious, but basically you get killed and you're removed from the board. Now, it's not about really killing each other. It's more about the threat of death. It's about, I'm putting this here. Well, I can see that that's going to die at some point. So what's the point of me continuing that battle? Right. And when you play the 5x5, like that's just for learning. That's something I made purely just so that I could explain the concepts of the game. But once you get to 7x7, I honestly believe it's an underrated thing for enjoyment. And when you're at 19x19, which is what people consider the full game, although that's kind of a gatekeepery way to look at it, in my opinion. Like with a 19x19, you can have this battle going on here and another thing happening here. And then each corner eventually merges into this central battle that you don't know what's going to quite go on until it happens. And then it all cascades from your very, very simple moves. It's literally just put down a piece. Which spot do you put it down on? That's your only decision. But within this framework, it's, okay, what do I prioritize? What does my opponent have to respond to, which will give me the tempo advantage? And there's so many concepts that you can apply to every single game almost.
Oh, what a great mention. This is, like I said, it's not in my top 10. I'm going to note that, but it's definitely one that I wanted to think about, right? And
it's one I definitely want to revisit. And I think revisiting it with someone with like your level of enthusiasm that you've shown for the game, I think would benefit, It's not Absolutely. A kind of game where I can kind of like teach myself and go on BGA,
Like, I will say that BGA is terrible for this game because it doesn't really implement the handicap system, which is really at the heart of the game. And so you do have to go onto dedicated website servers if you want to play online. And there's loads of them around, and you can then work out your level and then play fair matches very quickly. I will say that I think the best way to play is, if you really like online games, you can do that. Or if you've got someone else who's also interested to join you on the journey, make a board, get some stones. Like, you can probably buy one for like 10 quid or less. And yeah, in terms of financial accessibility, it's super low. And if I'm being honest, like, yeah, in the first half hour, you'll work out whether you can sort of see it in your mind. But you don't need to be at that upper echelon of strategic thought. Right. And I honestly believe that it's more approachable than people will assume, given the age and respect that the game garners.
Yeah.
Nice. Well put.
This, we joked about the list. This is probably one to put on the list, Ryan.
Yeah. I'm down.
Oh,
Awesome.
Thank you, Bez. I like I said, it's a really interesting conversation when you get into the history of this one. We had Ian on before talking about the history of games. Let's get Ian to dig into the history on this one, see what he comes up with, because you never know.
We could put Space Marines in this one, and it'll be theme it,
Oh man! And what you said, it's are you up to anything? Anything that you're doing these days, Bez? Anything you're working on, or anything you wanted to share?
Oh, a whole bunch of stuff. Honestly, I've realized this year that I've been a terrible business person. I like to believe that I'm still a decent designer and I've made some all right games, but I've just not had anything available for actual purchase outside of Kickstarter and conventions. So I've been talking to a couple of friends at Spiral Galaxy and GMS in the UK, and I'm hoping to get them stuff that I had some bad luck. I'm not going to go into it, but I had a partnership in Poland that took a couple of months to realize it wasn't panning out. But I'm hoping to finally get my web shop back online. And I will be back in the UK for UK Games Expo if anyone here is UK based. So although given that it's 4:30 a.m. over there, I doubt it.
Yeah.
When you do get the shop up, definitely share away. Make sure we know.
Thank you very much. But yeah, it's been a delight to be on, and I hope that I've encouraged even one person to give Go a chance.
Absolutely. At least 2 here.
Yeah, at least
Excellent.
two. Awesome. Right. Thank you,
Oh,
Bez.
3-2 with Anthony.
Yeah,
too.
we see
he's
Anthony
muted.
nodded. Is he muted? Oh yeah.
Oh, sorry, I am muted. Yes.
Thank you. And stick around. We'll we got a few more games to figure out our list, but God, we gotta get, I guess, in the comments, we gotta figure out what else people said.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for that, Bez. Always good to have you.
Thank you. Likewise. Bye-bye.
There, Bez.
Bye, Bez.
Let's see. So I'll bring up the list.
Right.
There was one mention that I'm gonna need to say, because after mention of Patchwork, Rachel mentioned Keeper Europe, which is not on my list, but prior to that, Rachel mentioned Sobek, 2-player. And that is on my list. On
Me as
my
well.
list at number 8.
Oh my gosh.
Number 4.
Oh my gosh. I don't have Sobek 2 players, but go ahead.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about Anthony? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll say some stuff, and then you can say some stuff. Sobek has been described as a kind of a combination. First of all, it's by Bruno Cathala, one of my favorite designers. It's been called kind of a combination of Jaipur and like King Domino or Queen Domino. And the reason for that is it's part of it is set collection, which is a mechanic that I really love. And then in addition to that, there's these on the tiles of the goods that you're going to sell for sets for points. There's also these scarab icons on them, which are multipliers, basically. So if you ever played King Domino or Queen Domino, that's how you score in that game as well. There's crowns on ones, and you multiply by however many spaces. But basically, this is a game where you're going to be set up this board. I think it's 7x7 maybe, or 8x8, I forget. And there's all these different tiles. Some of them are goods, and some of them are people, characters that can do different things. But the cool thing about it is it has this placement of this Ankh, where you put that down on the tile that you're going to take, and then each tile has an orientation of these 2 kind of markers that is going to determine how you position the Ankh for the next player to make their choice. Meaning, if you choose a tile that has, say, the diagonal corners marked off, you're going to place the Ankh in a diagonal fashion. And thus, on your opponent's turn, they are then choosing tiles in that diagonal row of line of sight, so to speak. You can take any tile in that row, but if you do skip over stuff, you're going to take those tiles that you skipped over off the board and add them to your corruption. Yes. So there's this whole balancing thing about the corruption, because end of game you're going to, I forget it, correct me, Chris, you don't lose points, but I believe if you have the least amount of corruption, you get the chance of getting more points from the bag pulling at the end.
So so at the end of the game, you're calculating the score by a few key areas. There's going to be Debin tokens that you get in the game, because when you pick up a tile,
that's like the money kind of. Yeah.
You could choose to take the Debin instead, and you don't know what it is. You're just you're drawing it. You're going to score it based on the sets, the Debin tokens, and those pieces. The corruption tokens, are going to. So put it this way: the player with the fewest corruption points earns 1 Debin token plus 1 extra Debin token for each set of 3 corruption points.
Right. So the larger the amount,
yeah, the more the difference in your corruption, the more points someone is getting, is basically what that means. The other really neat thing with this is, and I agreed with this based on when I learned more about the original Sobek, because I kind of read up if I never played it. But I'm glad this was the first one. I could never go to the original. But the thing that I like about this is the goods that you're collecting, which by the way are ivory, ebony, I wrote this down here, ivory, ebony, marble, wheat, fish, and livestock. So those are all the items. Now I'm going to stress something. My love of this game comes when you add the expansion. Personally, I really think the expansion ups the game on this, and that is something that if Mr. Rao is still here, I'm not sure if Mr. Rao is still in the house, but yeah, the expansion is huge, and that one is Treasures of the Pharaoh.
Right.
And essentially what it's going to add, it adds some new characters, it adds some new tokens, but it adds some of these some of the tokens, some of the pieces it's adding have these huge variety and versatility to them that I just think are a difference maker. But I'm with you.
Comparable to the Splendor Duel, right? It has these kind of multi-use cards or tiles in this game where you can hold on to it as the character, but the characters also do have a good on them. Some of them have a good on them. So you can kind of decide, do I want to use this for the special action that it does, or am I saving it for the big set? Because similar to, again, like Jaipur, the larger the set you sell, the better you're gonna benefit from, the more points you're gonna get.
Last piece I want to mention for anyone who's not played this, and this is available on Board Game Arena also with the expansion if anyone wants to try it out. But when you do the sell set, the first 5 sets that sell, there's an extra piece. These extra pieces at the edge of the board, you get to pick one, and they have these different abilities.
Pierogies.
So, there's so much variety in this.
The ancient pierogi. Yes,
that's what they're called. There's obviously another meaning behind that word, but that's what they're called.
Really, that's what they're called?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how you say it. It's
okay.
Like the way you spell it, but they're basically risky, right? Because some of them are bad. There's corruption ones there too. Mm-hmm. But whenever you sell a set of, I think it has to be a certain amount of resources, right? Like
it's a certain amount. Yeah,
like you get to get that pierogi tile, which could give you corruption. It could give you more points. It could give you an extra
you know what? One thing I'll point out is there is interaction, and that's what Rachel is talking about, because some characters can affect your up. There's ones where you're literally taking from adding to a previously sold set, but there's others where you're stealing tiles. So yeah, the larger your sets are, when you go above 6, you're at risk of someone taking the action and making you cut down to 5, and so
I remember that part.
I really like this a lot. I would recommend it though. Personally, I think it shines when you add the expansion Treasures of the Pharaoh, which is a 2022 release.
So. Yeah, and I think it's something that if you taught someone with it off the bat, they would be none the wiser, I think.
Yeah. You could teach with the expansion and never go back. So
definitely.
Yep.
So I'm going to keep rolling here because I know we're a little short on time.
Yeah.
But I will keep going because of what I just mentioned. So this Sobek has been called a combination of Jaipur and King Domino. Jaipur is also on my list. Jaipur is going to be my number 3. Okay. Now, and I could see these two games switching position very easily. I just have many more plays of Jaipur than Sobek at this point, which is why it's slightly above. But again, set collection is just one of my most favorite mechanics in games. This is a card game where you're going to be collecting sets of different resources. Again, it's like silk and spices and things like that. Trying to sell sets of them, and the bigger the sets, the more points you'll get. But there's also these camels, and unfortunately our camel friend left the chat, so he probably would be sad about this, but he'll chime in on the Discord later, I'm sure, because these camels can You can collect them as well because the player with the most will get bonus points at the end of that round. But what's cool about the camels, they can also mitigate because they serve as sort of this placeholder, right? Because when you pull cards in this game, if you take more than one card, you've got to replace it with stuff from your hand. But if you have these camels in front of you, you can easily use them to replace the goods that you're taking to let you take more. That's really the basic concept of this game. Every time you sell a set, you'll get a bonus tile that'll have points on it. And the way that the setup works is it's more lucrative to sell them faster because those bonus points are going to be there, and they stagger and get lower as the pile goes on. A good comment here. Jaipur feels like an abstracted 2-player Ticket to Ride. That is interesting.
I could see that.
I could see the parallel
Yeah,
there.
kind of.
For sure.
I've never heard that comparison, but it does
me
kind
neither,
of make
but it does make a
sense
lot of
now
sense.
that I'm thinking about it.
And this is a story I may have told before, and I'll just tell it again because it sticks out. First time I ever went to a board game cafe, me and my wife were there playing some games, and I think we had just cleaned up a game and we're just enjoying a drink or something. And a table next to me had Jaipur out, and they had never played it before because they were reading the rules from scratch. And it was the first time I think I taught someone that I didn't know how to play a game. And I was just, it was exciting for me because I knew how to play and I loved it. And I was like, hey, you guys want to put down that rule book? I can teach you how to play in like 3 minutes because that's how simple this game is. And I know there's a new edition of this that came out a couple of years ago with, I believe, just different artwork. I don't believe any gameplay is different. I have the original version, which is fine.
Yeah.
Serves a purpose.
I like this one a lot. It's a game that's just very easy to get to the table. I like the pieces for it. It's just a well put together package, and it's in a small box. I mean, there's a lot
similar to
like
Lost Cities, you can play. You play best 2 out of 3 essentially. But if you want to just play one round, you can certainly do that. But it's not a long game by any means.
The biggest thing is you have to reset up the pieces in between in the proper order.
Yeah,
like really, it's the in between turns that probably
that's a little annoying with the stagger the tokens. But another reason to play a digital version of this game. I think that,
which is pretty solid. That digital
work out of it.
version.
Oh yeah. Oh,
So
good one.
number 3.
So what do we have left on our list?
I'm going to jump into my number 4.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned you like set collection.
I love it.
What if I told you there was a set collection game where the set you're collecting, you actually give to your opponent? Right? So my number 4 is a game about passive-aggressive gift giving. And it's called The Field of the Cloth of Gold.
This was my number.
Holland.
After I had put together a list, I want you to know, I realized this would have been, if I had an honorable mention, my honorable mention.
Okay.
Because it's so good.
It is really
good. You guys
good.
talk about this. I really want to try this.
Yeah, it's wild. It's just, how is this game working? The game. Which, by the way, the version we played was the 503rd anniversary edition. And in this game, you are 2 players using these little barrels as your workers and putting them on different spots to achieve different points. Okay, but whatever spot you go on top of, there's an associated good underneath that spot, and you give that good to your opponent. And sometimes that could be a good thing. Sometimes it could be an agonizing thing.
It usually is an agonizing thing.
It usually is. And sometimes you're between a rock and a hard place because there's only 7 spots on the board and there's 4 workers. And on your turn, you're removing one of your workers and placing it to another spot, which is only, 2 or 3 other spots. The only spot that doesn't give a gift is the spot on the leftmost space with the fearsome dragon, represented by the white barrel. And that fearsome dragon gets to take up a spot and just give a gift to an opponent. So while this game is going on, it's called the Field of the Cloth of Gold because gold is one of the goods. And gold is worth, at the beginning of the game, 3 points per gold token in front of you because you only score the tokens that are in front of you. However, the more points you get as you get them, the value of points will get lower. So if you see there's like 5 rows of numbers, that's the score tracker. When it gets to the 3rd row, gold becomes worth 2 apiece. 4th row and 5th row, they've only become 1 point apiece. So you want to make sure if you get gold, not to get a lot of points throughout the game. And if your opponent is getting a lot of gold, you want to make sure they do get a lot of points at the game, so their point value kind of plummets. Man, what a fantastic game. It's just weird and wild. And
you have to strike such a strange balance of how far you want to be down on that track, because
sometimes you might want to go for it. Sometimes you do want to go for the most points because you're out of luck with gold. And oh man, and this version comes with an additional currency, which is the I think they're called jewels. They're the green tiles, and they score exponentially. So if you have 1, you get 1 point. If you have 2, you get 4 points. You get 3, it's 9 points, right? And you score that before you score the gold too. So if you get a lot of jewels and then you score your gold, then your gold might be even worthless, even more. I really, really like this game. It's weird. It's great. On the back of the box, it describes it as if Reiner Knizia put on a leather jacket and gave you a box full of daggers. Say, here you go. Have fun.
You introduced this to me and said we are playing a game of passive aggressive gift giving,
and you were going to
teach this game to you. And we're going to play 2 games in less than an hour, and that happened.
Yep.
That's all I'm going to say. That does not usually, when someone says I can teach you this game and we're going to play 2 games of it in the next hour, usually I call that's bull. There's no way that's happening. You can do that with this one. So
yeah,
it's impressive and it's a great time.
Yeah, and Ian's right. I love how Hollandspiel describes themselves as producing weird games for weird people. Annabelle Holland very much designs and publishes the games that she wants to publish and makes the games that she wants to make. And I just am here for it because, man, Field of Cloth Gold is great.
Yep. So let's keep flying down this list here. So what do we got? You got your number 2, my number 6. What do we got on Anthony's side?
Anthony's number 5.
All right. So we'll do my 6, I guess.
You want to do 6, 5, 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
My number 6 invites you to take the role of the leader of a village. And you're facing off in a tradition of brewing beer and baking bread. This is Beer and Bread. It's Scott Alms designed, published by Deep Print Games. This is a game that takes place the course over, I believe it is 6 years. You're alternating through fruitful and dry seasons, which are very clearly, by the way, marked on the board on what the fields look like, which I think is great because the resources are not quite as resourceful during those dry seasons. And we are trying to take these actions to produce these cards, to produce goods, but maybe we'll want their abilities, and we're actually going to be tucking them under the board, which can be quite helpful. Meanwhile, I got to point out in this game, we've also got a storage space. And when your storage space fills up, you got to give it up. But it doesn't just go back into the reserve. You got to give it to your neighbor, the other villager, if they've got room, which they may not want it, or they might really want it, depending what they're going for at that time. So talk about paying attention, right, to what your opponent wants. This is, for me, just a really enjoyable game, and it combines a lot of things that I've come to find that I really like. Card tucking for abilities, multi-purpose cards, very enjoyable. The variances from season to season, and also the way you actually are collecting your cards differs in each year. So the way that you're actually going to be able to do the drafting of your cards is going to change in each of those seasons too. So it's to me just a really well designed, fairly quick playing, 45 minutes, probably can play it in 35 minutes with someone who knows it, 35 to 45 minutes easily. First game probably is an hour, just with a teach, but it's a game that offers so much variety in terms of, I think, the different mechanics and gameplay. There's enough interaction In this game, I'm not going to call it. I don't think it's fair to call it highly interactive, but it's pretty interactive from a standpoint. And yeah, I highly recommend people try this one out. Tyler, I see this game I really wanted to play. Only good things about it. Yeah. And I love the theme. I love the theme of beer, bread. You want to produce this stuff. You want to get your victory points, but sometimes a really good card is a card you're actually just going to tuck. And you can stack those tuck cards, if I'm not mistaken.
It feels good to do so too.
Yeah. And you can make really powerful combinations that way. Mind you, you're losing a card by doing it. So you got to do it really thoughtfully. But highly recommend this one. Really enjoy it. If anyone ever wants to check this one out and is, of course, local to New Jersey area, hit me up on the Discord and we'll make it happen. But yeah, that is Beer and Bread, designer Scott Alms.
What?
What's the not so good call board website?
Oh, okay. He's having. I see.
This seems to be a Squirrel problem.
Yes, I think so. Squirrel.
We have a squirrel problem.
We have a squirrel problem.
Well,
All
Squirrel
the
works on that. Do you want to go into your number 5, Anthony?
My number 5 is definitely new to the list because I did not own it last time we made this list. Although I did talk about it recently on one of our episodes.
He did.
That is another 2-player version of an older game, Tokaido Duo, not Duel, Duo 2.
Skyrocketed up your list into your top 10.
Yeah. So if you've never played Tokaido is a very laid-back game where you're just going along the board, stopping at these different parts to do things along your visit. You're trying to have the best time by going to the stores and going to hot springs and restaurants and going to paint landscapes and all this cool stuff. And a lot of that is thematically in this 2-player version as well. But again, because it's 2-player only, it is a very different feeling from the kind of chill Zen Tokaido thing. This is much more competitive. In Tokaido Duo, you're going to be controlling 3 different characters that all do things in different ways. They move in different ways and they score points in different ways. It's really what I liked about the game the most in that first play was that you're always doing something different, but it also has rolling dice, which I love. This is that type of game where you're going to roll dice, and if you're the active player, you're going to choose first and then also get the last thing. So you're going to kind of alternate from doing 2 things to 1 thing and back and forth and back and forth. The 3 different pieces or characters that you're controlling there's the Pilgrim, which is going to be traveling around the outside of the board. There's the Merchant, which is basically like a pick up and deliver thing, because the merchant's going to be going to the different places to pick up goods and then going to shops to sell them for money. And then there's also the Artist, which will move around these like larger sections in between the cities and spots to do different art things. So basically in the art board, you want to gift paintings to people as a way to get points, but you have to be in that particular scenery section to sell that. And that's, kind of thematic. Think about an artist on the street, by the bridge or whatever, is painting the bridge and then selling it to passerbys. A lot of cool, thought choices going on in this, because you're going to draft the dice that's going to tell you which character to move and how many spaces you can move. And again, because you're doing 3 different things, it's almost like you're playing 3 like mini games at one time. But in the end of the game, you're going to grand total up all your points from what all 3 of those different pawns have been doing the whole time. The painter, with how many paintings you give out. Each time you give one out, you reveal more points on the painter's board. The merchant, the wares, you can only stack or hold up to 5 or 6 different wares. So you want to get some and then go sell them and be able to get in a spot to go pick up new ones right away. And then the Pilgrim, you're going around trying to go to the different temples and the hot springs and things like that. And that has a kind of a multiplier point value too. So you can go 1, 2, 3, 4 along the track of the points, and then just stay on the side. That's going to be 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, etc. Lots of cool things going on. I had no idea this game even existed until I saw it at PAX Unplugged this past year, and it's a great time. I think if you I don't want to say that if you are a fan of Tokaido, you're automatically going to like this game. But I'd say if you're a fan of 2-player games, I think you will enjoy this game for all the reasons that we've talked about every 2-player game tonight. And that's
you made this sound more interesting to me than Tokaido.
For sure.
I think described last time.
It is very, very different than Tokaido, for sure. Like I said, the artwork, the designer is the same. And, the pilgrim and the artist and the merchant are in Tokaido in that you're going to those spots too, right? But it's not, you're not controlling that actual character.
I agree with what Bez is saying there.
Refined version. I think you would enjoy it. It's fun. I love it.
Awesome.
I'd give it a shot.
And
I think you would like it.
Yeah,
I think you would like it.
Yeah, I like the ideas that the different pieces kind of work differently along the board. I think that part.
Yeah, to your point of what you were talking about with Doubt as our product, how you're kind of playing 2 different games there. I mean, both players are playing the same 3 things, but you're doing 3 very different.
Yeah, they're all asynchronous.
Goals.
Yeah, different powers and stuff. I like that.
Yeah. So that completes my list.
So we have one more to go. Before we do that, we got to bring in someone whose computer doesn't like call-board.com for some reason.
I wonder. Go ahead, bring him in. Because I wonder, are you doing HTTPS call-board.com, or you just type in call-board.com?
That's it. Just call-board.com. And it used to work before pretty fine. It just wasn't until this past call aboard that it hadn't worked since then.
So this is IT. I'm going to recommend you shut it off.
Just kidding. You know what's funny? That's my job there.
There you go.
Oh, man.
Well, welcome.
How you guys doing?
I'm doing good. I like your haircut. Look at this guy.
Thank you. I have to look spiffy for somebody for Valentine's Day, and that person is me.
Well, it's been a long time since I've seen you without a hat now on here.
I know, right? I am hatless for you guys. You guys have been going for a long time so far, almost 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yes. But you know what? You're going to make us pass that. So let's do it.
All right. And I'm going to do it with 4 games, but
Four games?
Yeah, they're going to be quick.
All right, be quick.
But if you guys talked about it already, I haven't watched it because I was at the game night. So if I say something that you guys haven't talked about, let me know. So I have 2 classics and I have 3 classics and 1 like really new one. I'll talk about the classics first. So
sure.
There's a game that I will never get tired of at 2 players, and this is Cribbage. And there's a specific reason for it. Mostly because my grandmother taught it to me when I was very, very young. I was probably like 6 or 7 when she started teaching it to me. And she taught it to me on her board that she was taught on. But eventually she got a new board and she kept teaching it to me on there. And just like anytime I would visit my grandma, I would play Cribbage with her because it was like one of her favorite things to do. It's one of those memory kind of games that whenever you play, you get that feeling of hell. I remember learning this from my grandma and remembering that game, and it was just a lot of laughs. It was fun. So
that's like your Ratatouille moment. And when the food critic eats the Ratatouille and it's brought back.
Yeah, there you go.
And I by the way, I'm going to interrupt you because that game, for memories and stuff, I feel like that's a common theme with a lot of people that have been calling in already or suggesting things.
Oh yeah,
a lot of memories have been tied into a lot of 2-player games, and I wonder if it has to deal with at least that attachment for having those ingrained memories.
Yeah.
So this is the board that she learned the game on.
Nice.
This is very, very old school. It has her name on the back right there in engraved.
Nice.
She taught it to me on this board. So I am going to teach my son the game on this board, and hopefully we can build some memories with that. But I will never tire of Cribbage just because of the memories of my grandma, who has unfortunately passed a couple years ago. The memory lives on.
Yeah.
The second one I want to talk about that is it's people wouldn't consider it a classic, but I'm sure it's already been talked about too on the channel, probably more by Espen than anybody. But Crokinole is probably one of the. No, you haven't talked about it yet.
It's not a 2-player only game.
Oh, it has to be 2-player only.
2-player only.
Okay. That being the first, let me talk
Otherwise,
about
it's number
let
one.
me talk about the third one, and I think Barrows might know what this is. This is a very, very classic 2-player game. I already told you that I love this game when we had our conversation where I got you Weapons and Warriors.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember the classic that the game that I told you that I really enjoyed? You also had a copy of it.
Is it Stratego?
It is Stratego,
right?
We talked briefly about that, but
Oh man, you've got a. I don't have a copy. I got like an
Deluxified?
old school copy that's like 1989, maybe. I don't
show
have
us
nice
that.
as that.
I had to get the
Hang on.
deluxified
Here's the
version. In
close-up
fact,
cam.
I got this at PAX Unplugged for a pretty good deal.
Wait, we're back on close-up cam. Yeah.
Okay, so here is the pretty cool version that I have. It opens up here to be the board, and like on the bottom side to hold it, like you go like this, and it holds the board in place so that it stops right there. So here's
Is that
the
where
board.
all the pieces are?
The pieces are also inside here. Well, I'm
Yeah.
actually going to shut this first. So it closes this way, and then the pieces are in here.
Oh, cool.
Fancy.
Yeah, it's super fancy.
That's
And
beautiful.
this copy of mine isn't missing any bombs like the other ones did.
Wow.
So it was a huge upgrade, and I've been playing a lot of that one specifically lately. But like, that is my favorite classic game. And besides Cribbage is more for memory and it's sentimental value.
I'm with you, Squirrel. Before you go into 4, I gotta tell you, I'm with you on this because anytime there's a copy that I find a good copy, I had my old like, and I won't get rid of it. It's been through hell copy of Stratego.
Yep.
And someone had like the box looked like it would barely been open. And so like, well, I'm like, I'll take it. So I think there's like 2 free copies of Stratego in my house for no other reason than I need people to be able to get this game. And if I found one in good condition, I'll take it. And then I'll donate it to the library or give it to someone to play who doesn't have it. But I as the classics go, if my number one classic would be that one
right there. By the way, for those of you who don't know Stratego, look it up. It's a very simple, not simple. It's very strategic. Chess-like game where you're advancing pieces on a board and you don't know who you're going up against until you like try to attack one, and then you both reveal the power levels of your pieces at the same time. And whoever, I guess it depends on the version, because I've played a version where who has the highest number is the one that wins. But I think my version is the one that has the lower number is the winner. But there's all sorts of different versions. Just follow the rules. I also learned that there is a rule that I've been giving wrong in Stratego for 30 years.
Oh my gosh.
There's a rule. So normally what I thought would happen, and it makes logical sense, when you run somebody into an opponent's bomb, the bomb explodes and both pieces are removed from the board because the bomb exploded, and the piece comes off the board that exploded because of the bomb. That's not the case. Apparently the bomb stays on the board until a miner takes care of it.
Yeah,
so
because only miners can destroy the bombs.
Well, miners can destroy a bomb without any repercussions. I just thought that any piece runs into a bomb and they both go off the board because the bomb explodes and therefore is not active anymore. But that is not the case. It stays on there, just repeatedly explodes, I guess. Whenever
that's why you better avoid the bombs or have a miner.
Exactly. So that added another level to the game that I never played with before. So there's something. But the last game that I talked about, you probably might not have heard of this game before, actually. And it actually just released earlier this year. It was on Kickstarter last year.
Cool.
And it released this in January. This is a game called Kuiperium.
How do you spell that one? K-U?
K-U-I-P-U-R-I-U-M.
Hold it. Yep.
There it is.
Corporation racing game.
This is a legit 2-player only game. It's a racing game. It has unique elements with it. And what I mean by that is there's just a single board, and you have half of the board, the half that's facing you. And there's these cards. Now, the cards have 2 purposes. The first one is you play a card and you get the effect on your side of the card. So the side of the card that's facing you, the text facing you, whatever it says. You get that ability once you play the card. On top of that, each card has like colors in the corners of them. That has to do with some kind of like synergy bonus for when you want to advance on the board. But What you're trying to do, by the way, with those corners is you're trying to align as many of the same color in that circle in each of those corners. So there's like 4 corners. So there's going to be like 4 circles that are created. You're trying to make as many of them match the color of the card that you're going to activate. Either way, those are the cards that you play, and you need them to have good abilities so that you can activate them as fast as possible. However, what you're also doing is creating a worker placement spot for your opponent's pieces. Because on that card facing the opponent is an ability that they get if they place a worker. So you either play a card, you place a worker, or you activate or you recall. There's a couple other actions you can do to like draw you cards, but you can also recall. When you recall, you get the ability, you get the actions that are on that worker placement spot. So when you place a worker placement, one of your workers on an opponent's card, you don't get the ability immediately. You get it when you recall them. And also there's a centralized base location where if you place a worker there and you recall, then when you do what's known as like, I forgot exactly what it's called, but you discover. So you take back one of your cards, and then you, again, count the corners to see how many of that colors are in each of those corners. And depending on how many there are, you can travel on a discovery track. There's another picture with the discovery track.
Yeah, it's on this corner, right?
Yeah, that's the one, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little difficult to see on that picture, but you're going up a discovery track. There you go. If you notice the hex numbers on it.
Oh, yeah.
Depending on how your synergy is, that's how far you can go. So in order to go onto the spot that has a 3, you have to have at least a 3 power in synergy of the card that you advance to go up there. It's literally just a race to get to the end. But the whole aspect of this is just a 2-player card tableau building, but as you're building a tableau, you're creating strong worker placement spots for your opponents, and you're racing at the same time to try to get up there. There's abilities, there's asymmetric things that happen, but just all in all, a really, really good design and a really good game in my opinion. So like, I kind of like if anybody wants to try it out at some point in time.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I like how novel that is too.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the better 2-player games I've played in a long time. And this is going back to like things like 7 Wonders Duel and things like that.
Kuiperium.
But yeah, there's a couple other 2-player games that I like. Didn't necessarily care to mention, but there's plenty, like a Star Wars deck building game. That one is the better one.
Mentioned.
I think that's the better one out of all the Renegade ones. You know what? I'll stop right there for now.
Sure.
Well, Squirrel, you're trying to you got your streak going again too. So there
you go.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to point out that this comment, when we're talking about the length of the stream, keep going. It's barely the length of Scorsese movie. Well, I thought that was pretty good. Anything good coming out the content shoot these days, Squirrel, with the podcast?
Inside Scoop, we're eventually going to be having an interview with the designers of Galactic Cruise.
Cool.
That's going to be up on our channel soon enough. And when it does, it's going to show the details pre-Kickstarter, so before the Kickstarter starts. Nice. Kickstarter, I know, is like in March. I think it's the beginning of March. We also recently released an episode about Ticket to Ride Legacy. Cool. And we have a new contributor who was on the podcast. Her name is Lena. Listen to the podcast, check it out, see if you like what she says, and she does really well, and we're excited to have her.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, sir.
All right.
Thanks for calling in. Hope
My
you had
pleasure.
a great game night.
We did. We played Lacrimosa. It's my year anniversary going there, and so we played the same game that was the first game that I played there.
Aw.
Yeah.
Nice.
Anyway.
All right, sir.
You gentlemen have a good night, all right?
Take it easy.
All right,
and take a look at our last game. Who's ready?
What is it?
For the last one, right? Is that it? I think this is it. Great.
I was doing drum roll over here for you.
Guess what? I'm just gonna jump right in to air, land, and sea.
Oh yeah.
I'm
not surprised.
I like this game.
I played this with you. I liked it.
You did. So it's designed by John Perry, right? The guy, one of the designers of Spots. And Airland and Sea kind of feels very similar to the Reiner Knizia games Battle Line or Schottentotten, where you're fighting with different card plays. So what's going on is you're going to be on one side, your opponent's going to be on the other, and you have to fight in 3 different battlegrounds: air, land, and sea. And you're replacing cards either face up if they're of the matching suit, or you could put any card, including the matching suit one, face down for a 2 value. And what's going to go on is in each theater, you're going to identify who is winning that theater, and the player who is going to win that theater is going to get a certain number of points. But the interesting thing about this game is at any point you can choose before you play a card to just withdraw from the fight, because there's only 18 cards in the game. Of those 18 cards, there are numbered 1 through 6, and there's 3 different suits. And you get 6, I get 6, 6 remain in the deck, and there's a chance that you just have a losing hand. So the thing is, if you bow out early, you would give your opponent 2 points, 3 points, 4 points. If you don't bow out, the winner of that is going to get 6 points. And the game ends when one player reaches 12. So it's a matter of, do I think I got this, or am I just going to fly out of here? Because the low point cards are also going to have special bonus powers. Some of them are ongoing. Some of them are instant, like flip a card, which could be flipping one of those face down cards that didn't match in that theater, now belongs in that theater. And I really love the tension of this one and the constant feeling of like, okay, what are you going to do? Okay, do I got this? I don't got this. No, I don't got this. And that's okay. It's okay to not got this, because you could just lose less points and move on to the next round. And that's what I love about Airland and Sea. It grabs that feeling that Battle Line and Schottentotten does, but instead of it just being one long game with Battle Line and Schottentotten, this takes it at its core and has you replay that core throughout. And that's what I like about it.
It's a really enjoyable game. I definitely like this a lot, to the point that I almost bought it from Dr. J. I wasn't the first to put dibs, so I didn't get it. But it's one of those games that I feel like if I saw it on sale, I'd probably grab it just to throw it in my collection. I just thought it was solid.
Yeah.
So
there's also a sequel game called Airland and Sea Spies, Lies, and Supplies, which is roughly the same game, but you can combine them both to make a super large game. I haven't done the super large game yet, though.
Well, guys, we want to bring that list back up. So let's put it there. Zoom it out. This is our top.
A little too zoomed out.
Yeah, a little too. We had some crossovers, Targi being the only one on all 3, I believe.
Yeah.
But we had some decent crossover. Want to thank everybody for tuning in. This is the longest stream we've definitely ever done.
Yeah.
Outside of our
future Twilight struggle play.
Yeah. Outside of that, outside of our charity stream that we did. That was our 12-hour whatever long one that but this was fun. But on that note, guys, it is 12:14 at night. We've been talking about board games for 3 hours now. I've had a great time, but I think it's time to say goodbye to everybody. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And next week, I know we're trying to do Doubt is Our Product next week.
Yep. So Doubt is Our Product we'll be doing on Wednesday.
And and potentially one other, we are trying to schedule when we're going to have a playthrough also of Run by Fowler Games. So that's another one. Maybe if not, 2-player games. There'll be plenty of 2-player games played. That's what'll be happening. I'm going to wish everyone a happy Valentine's Day. And on that note, let's call it. Thanks for coming aboard the Tabletop Express.
Everyone.
Good night, everybody.